welcome to our segment of the show. We basically talk about what Sony's press conference was in day one. Their press conference was pretty megaton. It was pretty megaton.
Yeah, a lot of cool stuff happened in this press conference.
Things happened. Things were dropped. Started off, Greg.
Well, don't make me start it off, because you know where I'm gonna fucking go to immediately.
It's very true. You know, you can't be trusted. I was Greg's like, I want it now. That was a sword. Yeah. Like that was a sword. There was a scarf. All right. Yeah. All right. Now, this press conference, it was pretty megaton. We'll start off slow to build up the megatonness for you. But it started off with, Sony going in, talking about their old classics, same old. Video on demand. Yep. You could use Netflix without having to, play on PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus is going to turn over.
This is all the stuff. I'm just like, come on, Sony, get through it, man. Get through it.
Come on, get past the TV stuff.
Talking about the original programming they're gonna have. And it's like, oh god, we tried the tester already.
Yes,
we don't want this.
We don't want this. I saw one episode and stopped. We don't want this. We don't want this at all. And then the president of Sony's video little conglomerate company thingamajigger was like, we're going to bring you got no TV. But he was saying TV stuff. And basically, when I heard him saying TV stuff, went straight to Charlie Brown. I was like, pretty much that was what was going on.
I agree completely.
He went on, discussing some junk most people just didn't care about. He just had to get that shit out of the way. Goes on to talk about, they're going to be working closely to get gaming content. As to what the fuck that means, I don't know. But so this goes on, continues for a bit, and then finally they go, you show the first big before that they were showing some PSV games. They go and announce that Walking Dead is going to be on PSV, that God of War 1 and 2 HD are going to be on PSV or the Vita, or they call it PSV. So there he goes.
Fine.
So they go and announce all these things for the PSV. Hey.
We're hip.
We're hipsters. Yeah. We're avant-garde. No. so they go and announce a couple of small things. I personally didn't really care for too much of the small things they announced for PSP, because there were titles me and Craig had already played. So it's and
then when they talked about the PlayStation 3, it's like,
we
knew all these games are coming.
So they go
about like Origins.
Yeah. So they go and they reiterate like, hey, Batman's coming to your system. Hey, did you guys know that The Last of Us came out? Hey, Beyond Two Souls is coming out for your system. So they go and they kind of re-show a lot. Well, they did show a new trailer for Beyond Two Souls.
Which was weird, because I did not expect that game taking that sort of direction.
No, I didn't. I mean, they hinted that, she was like CIA soldier, and like, she had done stuff. So they mentioned that.
It was kind of weird to me. Like, I thought it was like, more like, Personally, I kind of wanted her to be a little bit more reserved, a little bit more like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have this thing like around me.
Yeah, because that's they sort of hint at that in the first like trailer that maybe that's the way she is. But when now it's like federal agent, people start going after her. That's when you realize like, you've done stuff before. This is clear that you are more than what you revealed to be. So they go and show her doing some sort of military shit and doing her little psychic powers and a whole bunch of fanciness. Which was nice. I liked it.
Yeah.
So after they showed the whole Beyond Two Souls thing and they were done with the PlayStation 3 portion, they go on to talk about some features with PlayStation Plus. They go on to announce that PlayStation Plus will carry over onto the PlayStation 4, and that that they also on the little like bullet point state that you need to on PlayStation 4 it is now required to have PlayStation Plus to play online games. But everything else essentially...
To me, that was probably the biggest negative.
Yeah.
That a lot of people... obviously, if you're a PlayStation 3 owner and you're used to your free online, it's now it's like you can't have it anymore. It's like, damn it,
I want my free online.
Yeah, which kind of sucks. At the same time, it's
like we're going to get PlayStation Plus, so it's like one of these weird things where it's like...
We argue that... The argument that we want to bring to you is that you get so much with PlayStation Plus, it's ridiculous. So, like, even now, you get PlayStation Plus right now, so many benefits come out of this. When I tell you, I have a friend who literally bought the PlayStation 3 a couple months ago. He was big into the 360, but he wanted to play some of the exclusive games that came out on the PS3. Bought it, first day adopter of the PlayStation Plus, and he's getting all this shit that I've been dying to play forever. And I've had the PlayStation 3 since like almost launch. It's like
pretty much.
He gets all this free stuff.
Pretty much.
He just got Infamous 2 recently for free.
Fucker.
Completely free. I know. Like, he's like, oh, I need to borrow Infamous because I just got Infamous 2 for free on my PlayStation Plus, and I want to play it. And I'm like, you mother effer.
Exactly. Big dilemma here, Craig. Stand back.
Craig.
I'm getting all this free stuff, but they're all sequels, and I need to play the original one. Such a problem. First world problems. No, but he is I am pissed off. If there's anything, I wish that I got PlayStation Plus before. Okay, because it's like all the free stuff that they're coming out with. Some of the games that I own on Steam and that I bought off PlayStation 3 came as free games on PlayStation Plus.
Right.
So when I see those happen, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I wanted that game. Could I got that for free? What the moves? So. Yeah. So I definitely get really sort of semi pissed off. Like, what can you do? I mean,
exactly.
It's kind of our fault.
Exactly.
We very much knew that this thing was giving free games, but the extent of how many free games they'd be giving, we did not know.
And the quality of the free games,
we did not know. All right, I think they gave Sleeping Dogs for free.
Oh my god!
Sorry, don't
tell me that
for free.
But so yeah, I mean that kind of, I guess, in an extent, like warrants the price.
Yeah, I feel that it's honestly the price per year for this is good enough just for the discounts in the free games. So it's like, for the exception of saying, okay, I'll take away one game per year for them to give me free games.
That's a good point.
I am very much going to, as to the quality of these games, okay, they could be a bunch of indie games. But they could be, here and there. They may not all be retail games.
In the conference, they've already shown
that
they're giving away Driveclub.
Oh right? Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you, Craig.
Yes.
Yeah. Driveclub. It's called Driveclub Plus Edition or PSN Plus Edition.
Yeah, something like that.
And they essentially give, even with the extent of what it may be, we don't really know specifically what it is. It's the fact that any form of Driveclub has been given to you for free for signing up for PlayStation Plus is awesome.
In and of itself, is like it almost warrants. It's like you're buying Drive. You're buying Drive Plus, but not only are you getting Drive Plus, you're getting the access to PSN for a year.
Yeah, so I look at it as it's a good win-win, especially for the first time using it. It's a good win-win.
Yeah. So I mean, as far as justifying the price, I think Sony did a really good job of like. Yeah, we understand now you have to pay, but look, this is what you're getting because of it. Very
true. I feel they justified it rightly so. And anybody who's a casual user who may not go online, who doesn't care for any of these things, you could still play your single player games, get your DLC off of PSN. You could still use Netflix. You could still use pretty much every streaming service without PlayStation Plus. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's nothing that's really required of you for PlayStation Plus other than online play. That is the only requirement. So everything else could essentially be done without it. Even the whole Gaikai thing essentially could be used with the cloud service without PlayStation Plus. It's not that you must have PlayStation. That's something you could do on it. You don't even need to have that to do that. So
can you explain Gaikai just to people who don't know what it is?
Gaikai, online cloud computing service, and essentially they have all these games stored in the cloud, so you're going to be able to stream these games. With PlayStation 4, or with the cloud service itself, you're going to be able to stream PlayStation 3 games to PlayStation 4. PlayStation 4's architecture is not the cell architecture. It is a x86 8-core CPU architecture. It being this means it's just not possible to port anything on there using that same architecture without really going into deep waters in terms of reprogramming everything to work on it. So they go and they have this new system set up to where you could play some of these PlayStation 3 games on your PlayStation 4 or even on your PlayStation 3 using the streaming service. So let's say Heavy Rain. Let's say I want to play Heavy Rain, and Heavy Rain on Gaikai is $10 on the cloud service. You know what? Okay, I'll give it a go. I'll go and play Heavy Rain on the cloud service. What I could do now is Heavy Rain is tied to my account. That means I could go and say, you know what, I'm going to play Heavy Rain on my PlayStation 4. Or you know what, I'll play it on my PS3. Or you know what, I'm going to work, I'll play it on my PSV. That's how that's going to work. So it being tied to your account allows you to essentially digitally go anywhere with you. So I like the idea of a game like that, essentially enabling you to go anywhere with it. So being able to do something with this in terms of streaming helps you get some of that library that, let's say, if you didn't own a PlayStation 3, but there was only 1 or 2 or 3 games you really didn't want it. I mean, you didn't really need that badly. There were a couple of games that you wanted, then you could help yourself to it. As for the quality of it itself, I have no idea. It's like we haven't really seen anything on it. And mind you, the cloud server starts in 2014, so exactly even then we're not really going to,
this isn't a service we're going to get at launch anyway, so for them to have it now is like kind of weird to show off, but
yeah, so
we will be seeing stuff from it very shortly. I don't imagine like they're going to show something on it like at least before the end of the year.
Yeah, and another thing to note is that it also works on any mobile, any Sony official. I think it's like Sony certified mobile, like PlayStation device or something. So anything that's like a Sony PlayStation official certified mobile device apparently could also play some of these games too. So I guess with help, some of them could play with it. But it's very, very interesting how they're integrating this with it. But that's one of the things that they announced during E3. We'll have more on that as it comes in 2014. Right. And immediately following after that, they go more deep into the PlayStation 4 stuff and start letting us know all the stuff that we give a fuck about, like games. So they go and show like games. So they go and show Ready at Dawn and Sony Santa Monica's new IP. Well, Ready at Dawn is making it. Sony Santa Monica apparently helped them.
That's what seems like Sony Santa Monica's doing. Like, hey, Sony Santa Monica, these guys need help, so just get over there.
Pretty much. They're like I believe they're one of Sony's biggest studios. So it's like they're essentially, because I believe that studio is composed of Warhawk team, Incognito.
Right.
So they're composed of the rest of the staff that came from that team. So it's like back to the Order. So they're helping out the folks that are doing this new game called The Order of I think it's 1886 or 1886. So me and Greg called it.
If you remember last time we did mention 1886 and how a game like that was going to be shown at the Sony press conference.
Yeah, we did call that, but sadly, Naughty Dog did not rumored they were going to be there. Naughty Dog is not there. Naughty Dog did not show anything. Sony Santa Monica was there to clearly show this in trailer form, but our biggest surprise is that it's Ready at Dawn who's making this game. It's not the Guerrilla Games IP, and Sony Santa Monica's helping. It's Ready at Dawn. So I think it's really awesome that Ready at Dawn is making their first cool PlayStation console game. So I'm very excited for that team to be doing that, because that team has made a lot of great portable stuff and now finally going out to make some cool console game. So game starts out.
They made it to the major leagues.
They made it to the big boys. So and I'm sorry, they did a great job. So game, trailer starts out. All right, you see a couple of dudes inside of like old timey looking car, and it looks normal. Everything looks like okay, this is back in the day, driving some old garbage ass like a car, and Model T looking shit
in a freaking horse and buggy type deal.
Was it horse and buggy? I thought it was Model T.
Well, yeah, they had a chariot guy was like riding. Remember, they had a little carriage in the back that they were in.
Oh, I didn't know that one goes. Yeah. Oh yeah, because the horse got scared when the little thing over there. Because I thought that was weird because they still have the steam engine thing going on there. So as they're going, the little horses there, little horse and buggy. Everything's looking all old and back in the day and ghetto and shit. So everything looks as the way it should look in terms of this set time period. All of a sudden, you look and you see a gun getting loaded up, and you see some other shit, and you're like, "This doesn't belong here."
That's not right.
Oh my God! They had guns then, but this semi-automatic weapon doesn't belong in this universe at all. So I'm like, that clip is longer, bigger than normal.
They got some dude, like some electrical powered thing on strapped in his back, and then like some Tesla coil powered thing. Like,
wait a minute. Those extended magazine clips were not even in play around that period. So finally, the whole big MacGuffin of this whole thing is pretty much revealed. So he's going, and then they're going in some horse buggy, and they're talking about having to go to some mysterious place. Narrative, and it's all foggy and getting all like Hunchback of Notre Dame on your ass, getting all foggy and shit.
Amen.
Getting all Jack the Ripper buggy in your ass. So they basically go their horse and buggy, fog everywhere, and they're under like these train tracks. They get out of the horse and buggy, and you see a train pass by, and you see some sparks going. You see some ambient light around the actual sparks. Clearly, these things were done on purpose, but it looks absolutely great. So you see a little bit of ambient light falling around everywhere from the train tracks that are growing overhead, and horse kind of jumps a little bit because I guess it gets scared. And then you see this thing like jumping around, and they're trying to shoot at it. Guy pulls out an electric gun. Homegirl whips out her thing. All of a sudden, the guy starts like talking to some sort of walkie-talkie that's on his side. So he has this little walkie-talkie on his shoulder. He's saying a whole bunch of weird shit. All right, and he's talking to another
that's
person.
not supposed to be.
That doesn't belong there. Who's he talking to? When they say this game was made, so it's quite clear that things in this game don't belong. So they're shooting at whatever the hell they're shooting at, and you know the trailer ends around there. It's a really, really good looking trailer. From what I've seen, it's one of the most decisive looking next generation games that was shown that day. It's a game where, without argument, it's a next generation game. By sight alone, without argument, it's a next generation game. Just by looking at it.
I know. So one thing about that trailer, man, it was just that setting.
It was
everything about it was just so beautiful. You have that whole Victorian-esque look to it. Like you said, with the horse and carriage and like
semi-futuristic.
They're wearing their like nice, almost like blue vests and like girls wearing like crazy dresses, nice silk. And then, like you said, with all the crazy ass weapons,
yeah.
and then they get out of the car, and all these freaking crazy ass looking monsters are out there.
Even with going back to the setting, as the car is going over this bridge, you just see this whole all these airships flying around, and they really sell you that okay, there's a time period, but it's very much. And I don't want to bring up Resistance because that's the closest that you could think of is Resistance. A game that has not even future, just an alternate history. Mm-hmm. I could say, well, I wouldn't say alternate history because future doesn't necessarily mean alternate history. But definitely it's a game that sort of looks like it has an alternate. It's taking a play out of the whole Resistance playbook of alternate history that this takes place then. But clearly we have different things here. So everything I've seen was really awesome about that game. Right. I want to see more of it. They're definitely giving a good tease of it, so I want to see more. After they show that game, they go on to show some other like notable announcements, mostly some multi-plats that people need to look out for. Assassin's Creed 4 was shown there. Of course. I forget what else they showed. There was another multi-platform that showed. It was that NBA game. It was 2K. 2K showed their NBA game there, I believe.
Yeah, 2K showed their NBA game,
which was like
we had Elder Scrolls Online,
which was announced to be on beta for the PlayStation 4.
Right.
So that if you have, I think it's if you have PlayStation Plus. If you have PlayStation Plus, the PlayStation 4 version of the Elder Scrolls game is essentially going to get a PlayStation, Plus beta for it, so you'll be able to go and play the game for the first time on PlayStation 4.
Right, and then again, we talked about Assassin's Creed. They showed Watch Dogs, had another gameplay trailer of that, which we talked about.
Which we've definitely discussed.
And then beyond that, we had. I want to get into the whole indie game presentation.
Yeah, that indie game presentation was really good.
That was actually really cool to see.
If there was any company that could ever really boast about how many indie, developers that they got working with them, it has to be like this is like the biggest statement you could really make.
Literally, like when they came out, I think they showed like 6 games. I think it was.
It was like 6 or 7.
Yeah,
because I remember there was like just.
Yeah, I remember it was a good amount, but like every single indie developer, like they harkened back. It was all new games, mind you. Besides, I guess Don't Starve's been out for a little bit. But all these games are like new games, and they like harken back, like, oh yeah, Transistor. If you remember Bastion, is these guys' new creative vision.
Cared about that?
They had the whole Oddworld remake. You had
that one Octodad.
Yeah, the Octodad game, which is just to me it's freaking hysterical. I watched it last year. Was it last year? Yeah, last year. In its beta form, I want to say. It was a beta form of this game, and like they sped run it for like charity and stuff like that. It was just mad fun.
Oh yeah, I remember you were telling me about that.
Yeah, they have the a charity every year called Quick Games Done Good Games Done Quick. They hold this charity function every year. It's streamable on Twitch. You can always watch it. But they showed it there, man. That game is just like, it's so ridiculous. Like the whole concept of like this octopus just being a father. And like going about like his day and like the way it all controls and stuff, it's just like a completely,
and like it's like goofy,
completely ridiculous.
It's like really goofy.
Yeah,
bizarre. Like
everything about it is goofy. The way he,
like so
the way he moves, everything that's happening in the game is just all just so ridiculous.
What I like, one of the things I liked about the presentation while they were showing the Octodad thing was that they stated that they essentially gave this out. I believe it was like a week or something. They gave the dev kit to I think it was either a week or like 3 days or something. It was something really crazy. Yeah. They essentially gave the PlayStation 4 dev kits to the team that did this Octodad game, and they had the game essentially up and running, and a majority of it ported within like 3 days. Wow. So that's like pretty crazy to say. That's how portable the x86 architecture is for them to be like, wham bam, our game's already up and running. Right. Whether it's 3 days or a week, it doesn't matter. That's astonishing regardless.
Exactly. With the open platform, it's gonna come to the point. It's like every indie game companies would be like, why not put our game on the PlayStation 4?
Exactly. Sony is essentially like, we're not going to go to the indie games. We go to the indie games, come to us. So exactly. the way they're doing it and having an open platform is absolutely working. The craziest thing is that Sony had so many announcements in terms of their indie games, their own first party stuff, along with showing trailers for their 4 main IPs that they had showed earlier in February. All those IPs that they were able to show were all in trailer form. And it was so long and it was so much. If you consider 2 hours and 20 minutes of that press conference was pretty damn long. And they weren't able to demo some of those games because how long the press conference was. And you have to take into consideration that during this press conference, they couldn't come out and say, oh yeah, PlanetSide 2 is coming to PlayStation 4. DC Universe is coming to PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
That War of Thunder is coming to PlayStation. It was so many games, or Warframe, and all these other games are just all coming to this platform. And it's so much indie stuff and so much free-to-play stuff, so much MMO stuff that you couldn't even put it in a 2-hour, 20-minute press conference. That's a lot of fucking content.
For sure.
Put it this way. There's not one fucking Xbox One game that was just left out, that was on this system exclusive that nobody knew about. Mm-hmm. So for Sony to sit there and have these games that came from PC all on this platform, it wasn't even enough to show all of them. That's a lot of indie content. So I feel that all the stuff that they were able to show, they did to the best of their ability. Mm-hmm. But don't think that what was shown was it. You need to go online and start really seeing everything that was announced for this platform over the last coming days. It's quite a lot.
Something I felt like they could have omitted, though, in reign of something else, was the Diablo 3 announcement.
Yeah.
Like, we all knew it. You literally only came out and said that Diablo 3 is coming and we're adding PlayStation.
Yeah, some DLC. I felt because they wanted to announce it first in that platform and knowing that it's already being released on Microsoft systems as well, I felt that Sony just wanted to essentially make or keep the contract of whatever deal that they have with Blizzard and Activision. And I think whatever deal they had with Blizzard and Activision was to showcase the game at their event. And the thing I don't like is that they had to showcase it at their event because of whatever exclusive deal they clearly have with them, where this space could have been used to say some other stuff.
Exactly.
There's so many other stuff that are being announced in this platform. I believe give them some sort of space.
Mm-hmm.
I felt
especially since like we've already heard, we know Diablo 3 is coming.
Yes, and
something this minuscule could have just been said in an interview.
Yes, and I feel that the reason why any of these were on stage at all had to do with any of the deals that Sony had in place with these publishers. I believe the publishers are paying for face time. They're paying for marketing time at Sony's event. It's why it was with Ubisoft and they had that exclusive DLC. It was why it was with Destiny and they got that exclusive DLC. It was exactly why it was with Diablo when they got that DLC. So those are the third-party games that they show, with the exception of the NBA game. The NBA 2K game, there was no deal attached to it. That was just shown just to be shown for the first time there.
Right.
But every other third-party thing felt that there was a contract attached to why they were there, and I felt that might have been better used if they're able to show other stuff. But because these contracts were already made, I don't think it would have been more wise to do a 3-hour event just to use that extra 30 minutes to tell us about the other games.
For sure.
I feel that they should have at least said something though and said, hey, look, go on PlayStation.com to see all the other games we have. We have a whole slew of stuff, and at least gave us some sort of crazy list of it. So let people know that it's not only stuff coming down the pipeline. Some majority of the games that we've seen already are launch games. Mm-hmm. That's the craziest things. Things like Warframe, which is coming out this year, PlanetSide 2, which is going to be a launch game. All these games are all coming within this year. So it may not be launched in November, but before the year's end, it's going to be on that platform, which is a big deal. I think that that's something that they should have at least said, hey, let's touch upon it. This is an important thing.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. But before we get into anything else, we already talked about the games that have been played before. And to be fair, we talked about Microsoft and their trouble with their conference. We can't omit Assassin's Creed and their trouble that they had at the PS4's conference.
That was funny.
Yeah. So if you missed it, like we said, we had the whole sound cut out with Microsoft's conference. Sony also had some troubles too, when apparently running the Assassin's Creed 4 trailer, there was some freezing involved.
Yes.
So it's kind of funny because we all know in the back of our minds that the people up on stage, they're holding the controllers and they're pretending to play the game or whatever. We know that that's just a video. We're watching a video.
I feel a lot of times they are playing. The reason why
sometimes you know they're not.
I feel that it's dishonest and it's unethical to have somebody on there and then not really playing the game.
But they did it.
And I feel that the way it was going, I think it was playing off of some sort of hardware, and I think whatever the hardware they had playing on there, the early code they had playing on there, really froze.
But the thing is though, when you watch it, it's the game's freezing, but the person on stage isn't flinching whatsoever. So it's does she realize that this is happening, or what is she looking at?
She's trying her best. He's probably saying, "Hey, game pro."
I mean,
if anything, the connection that was attached to the actual projector froze.
Yeah,
because if that was the case, it meant that she was still playing a game, but everybody else.
Yeah, we just didn't see it. There. Yeah, but not to go too deep into this, but I just want to. I just felt it would be fair. It needs to be mentioned just because we mentioned the Microsoft.
Kirk was I saw that forearm muscle move up halfway down. That's not the right way.
Watch that minuscule thumb movement to the left and the character's crouching. Nope. Yeah,
nope. Or our favorite, when someone's playing a video game on TV and they're pressing
they're pressing every single button and the character's
that button.
And then they cut to the screen and the character's walking straight. Pressing every single button.
Yes.
Like I said, I don't want to dwell on that because I was the only fuck up. It was the stuttering. So we can get into some of the first party stuff they got into, starting with Killzone. What do you think about Killzone?
The little short teaser thing they showed of Killzone, which I liked. It showed new setting, which was good to show. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was right to show that cityscape again. Showed a little jungle area. Show them fighting some Hellgas in the jungle scene. It looked really, really good. It looked like I felt man, maybe they should have showed this the first time. But it looked really, really, really great. I don't 100% believe they should have showed that the first time because I like what they showed the first time. Mm-hmm. But you get to see that nice fidelity. You now have a game to compare it to. You can compare this to something like maybe Crysis 3.
Right.
So, because it has that whole jungly setting. So you get this, and you had the nice looking textures on the rocks. Everything really, really, really looked good, and they very much reiterated the whole next gen feeling when they showed this game off, which I think is an important thing to show. I think they should talk about multiplayer, but clearly they seem to be saving multiplayer for another show. But
which is fine.
Which is fine as long as they're going.
We might even see it later this week. Some
actually that is true. That is true.
Maybe it's available on the show floor.
But I definitely like the weight and the feel of the heavier guns on the Killzone games. They add a nice way of realism to it, and it's a different way of playing. It's not like a Twitch thing, like a Call of Duty or a Half-Life. You just get a different type of first-person shooter with it, and you get, in my opinion, in terms of console, the best looking. In terms of ambiance, detail, and pretty much anything. So I definitely feel a Killzone game a lot of times is a solid first-person shooter.
Yeah, it's always a solid game, I guess, but it's always that game that comes out in the beginning of a console generation and then kind of just disappears.
Yeah, so I feel
and then, every time a new console generation comes out, new Killzone, you're like, oh yeah!
You might. I hope we don't really get any first console jitters with this. Only because like the Killzone 2 came out like years after the PlayStation 3 release and was really solid. But there were early PlayStation 3 games that did release that weren't really as solid. So I hope that this one doesn't suffer from that same type of earliness in terms of trying to get to know hardware configuration. But time will tell. Considering that they're now using PC architecture, I'm really curious if the whole idea of the whole first wave of launch games, the whole curse of the launch games being like one gem out of it. I'm curious to see if that will even happen, because using that PC architecture, you would think that there's no learning of the hardware. This is hardware you normally used to make the game to begin with. So what is there to learn? So I'm hoping that in that respect, it might create something a little bit better. And hopefully we get a game experience that's a little bit better than most launch games the year prior. So I'm actually fingers crossed, definitely. But Killzone, I mean, I like what I saw, but I mean, it's on the fence with me of actually picking it up at launch. It's actually, which is strange, but it is on the fence with me.
I wanted to ask you, moving the segment along a little bit, about Dark Sorcerer. If you could explain, I mean, I'm a little confused on it myself, and I want to know exactly like, where is this all going? Because to me, at first it seemed like it was going to be a game. You had the whole introduction. You had this crazy wizard old dude and this little gremlin like familiar who's like they cast some crazy spell, and then poof, we're on a set and it's being filmed. Like, what's going on with that?
Well, that old dude, and that's the same dude that they showed when they first showed in PlayStation 4 in February. When Quantic Dream's like, hey, look at our engines and look at the emotional attachment that we are able to convey with our characters.
That's exactly how it sounds.
Pretty much. We are able to get a sense of emotion from our characters. But the whole little old man face, and look at all his wrinkles and look how like cool he looks. It was essentially just a tech demo, just to show demonstrational stuff. It wasn't necessarily there for, how can I say it? It wasn't there for a game as much as it was there to showcase the system's power and strength.
Sure.
Which I actually really like, because it
was more of a tech demo, you're saying?
Yes, and look at it like this: Quantic Dreams is still making their actual engine to their game. So I don't think this is something that's taking away from them. It's just something to say, let's see what we could do on this hardware while we clearly are working on this system. For all we know, he actually may be a character in one of their games that they actually really are.
I'm not going to lie. I was watching that trailer. I was massively confused.
Yes,
I was very confused.
I was too, and I felt like after it was done, it's like another classic Quantic Dream demo when you realize it's the same thing when they had the thing with the robots, or same thing when they had with Heavy Rain, where it's talking about that earlier.
Oh, man. Both of those were amazing.
And both of those were amazing. So you look at it and you're like, man, that would be a great narrative about this woman that's going to kill herself, and then it turns out she's going to try to kill you. And then, oh no, but it's an audition thing. I like where it kind of gets that deep, where you're like, man, that is a really great narrative. But they're doing it to really test it, the little engine, and doing it to show what they could do with the engine and with the system.
Right.
But in my opinion, I think they also use it as a platform to say, okay, we want to make a little mini short video, an idea of something. They essentially turn it to their own little thing where they create something new. Like even with the thing with the robots, that's not anything, and that may turn into nothing. But that's one small thing where they decide to say, you know what, let's just do this into a thing to show something what we could do.
No, so something really cool.
It is really cool. I really like it. It really shows the power of the system. The smoke and fire effects look absolutely amazing. It's one of these things where that and the Order of 1886 are two things that just show this is what next gen is about. It's something like this, of standing there jaw dropping and saying, wow, that is really great looking. So they definitely proved their point that they are the superior system in terms of graphical strength and fidelity. They very much proved it. Not sure if that meant by actual hardware. Clearly by hardware they're much more powerful, or if it was just their studios. For all we know, Microsoft Studios didn't get everything 100% together. Right. And for all we know, that Black Tusk game could really knock it out of the park.
Who knows
in terms of fidelity.
The best is yet to come as far as Microsoft is concerned.
It may be a developer thing. It may not really be all hardware.
Staying in the same topic of this whole facial animation, like how good these games are looking, I want to go ahead and talk to you about that Infamous 3 trailer. Or I should call it by its official title, Infamous Second Son.
Yes.
And my God, when I tell you, I haven't seen facial animations in a game. Like we were talking about, we were literally just talking about this earlier. How these subtle things, these subtle details in animation that can just completely change everything and make things just look so much better. I think the best example this year of that was in the Infamous Second Son trailer.
Absolutely. And it's a crazy thing to think it, like we were saying, like me and I were discussing before this podcast started, we and Craig were discussing this great length, is the most craziest thing is that the animation itself almost trumps the graphical fidelity of the game.
Right.
Simply because it's not enough that you could look good still, but you need to look good moving. People aren't just looking at just dead screens. They want to see video. So when they see video of this going and they see how the characters act, how they see how the facial emotions begin conveying something without really having to say it, that's a great thing. They want to be able to play the game and get into the mind of the character without being droned in or without being exaggerating emotions. It's easy to make an angry face. It's easy to make a sad face. But to make a confused, distorted, all these weird gestures and faces that they have,
subtle like confused face or like I'm a little bit annoyed at what you just said type of face.
Yes, they had a lot of those on there, and it's really
emotions in people are just so complex that you can't just have angry and happy all the time. And I feel like in the Infamous 3, I keep saying 3, Second Son.
And it's okay because in my mind I see it as Infamous 3, even though it's all Infamous Second Son. I see it as Infamous 3.
In Infamous Second Son trailer, it kind of displays that to the nth degree. When I tell you, like, I must have said this a million times already, but I am a very story-focused gamer.
Pretty much.
When it comes to story, it is huge for me.
Greg Robinson likes a good narrative.
And with Second Son, animation, like you said, animation conveys the way we act, the way we look at each other, the way we sort of wince at each other. It explains a lot of a person's character. Exactly. It's really big in a narrative.
That's key. That's key to driving a narrative really well.
Oh, for sure. And a point I want to bring out in the actual Second Son trailer is a point where he's talking to his brother. And he's talking to him saying, his brother's basically telling him, why do I have to keep arresting you all these times? And he's saying, well, you don't have to keep arresting me. Why do you keep arresting me? And it was after that point, after he says, why don't you stop arresting me? Right? The main character says, why don't you stop arresting me? I forget what the guy says, but literally it's like, he knows what he, like, you can see in his face, like, he's kind of just like, he starts to, like, almost, like, look down, and it's like, ugh. Like, he's getting that big brother lecture, almost.
Yeah.
He's getting that big brother, like, he's starting to look down, it's like, he's kind of annoyed, but at the same time, he knows what he's saying is pretty much right, kind of. It's just like, ugh, stop talking,
exactly.
I know what I'm doing, kind of deal. It's like, stop telling me what to do.
Which is something that you know, would not really be conveyed well.
No, it's hard to convey that, but they did it so well. Like, everything in that, like, I can't stress enough, watching, especially the main character's face in that trailer, was just a sight to see. It was so much fun to watch that trailer, just alone, not even like the gameplay aspect. They touched on the gameplay portion, but just the whole facial animations, the way these two people are interacting with each other says so much about the relationship that they're going to have in this game.
Very much
and
so.
I'm super excited for it.
I'm happy. The only thing that I didn't like about the part of that press conference, really, Infamous Second Son not being at launch. So it's like the idea of Infamous Second Son coming out, early next year. I mean, I'm still very much going to get the game. I just wish that it was the first game that I was popping into my system.
No, for sure.
So it is a game that absolutely is like, even though you get that, especially the way the city looks, you get that semi-next gen feel, but you get that next gen feeling when you see the facial animations, and you see the fire, and you see the smoke. All those effects are where you get that next gen feel, and it really looks great.
I mean, I've always been a fan of Sucker Punch, from the Sly Cooper games, and now coming to this generation with the Infamous games. To me, when Second Son was announced, it was an instant for me. Like, there was no question in the fact that I would buy it. And this trailer that they showed at the Sony press conference is just telling me, like, it gives me something to boast about. I'd be like, nah. I always believed in Sucker Punch, fucker.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I was there since day one.
Sly Cooper 1, yo. That game was the fucking shit.
And that's what's
I played the shit out of that game.
What's weird is when me and Craig were in high school, I actually remember when Craig was playing that game when me and him were in high school. When that game series was big.
It was like, that was like my... like I can't tell you. I remember I bought Sly Cooper 3 the day it came out, day one. I was there, got it, came home, played that shit. I did not stop playing that game until it was completed.
That's my dog.
I fell in love with the Sly Cooper characters. That's something for another time. We're talking about Infamous Second Son right now.
I was gonna say any chance for Sly Cooper next gen. No.
Well, I mean, I feel like with this, I'm pretty sure that the new Sly Cooper was actually successful, even though it was not done by Sucker Punch.
Yeah,
it was still very successful. I still enjoyed it. Like I played it and I enjoyed the fuck out of it. To the point where I think it does warrant a sequel.
Yeah, because I would expect that team that they had to do it to do another Sly.
Oh, they did really good. But back to Second Son. Like, to me, with this trailer, it didn't detract from anything.
Nice.
Only, like, they had a very strong emphasis on the characters and the story that's going to be playing out through the course of the game, and it only makes me want this game even more.
Nice. I definitely like it, and can't wait to hear more about it. The other first-party game that was shown a little bit more of was Driveclub. Driveclub, they showed a little bit more stuff of. And it looked really, really, really good. Like always, it looked really, really good.
Fucking racing games. You're not going to get much out of it from here.
I'm happy about this racing game simply because the aspect of it being open world, aspect of whole online connectivity. I really, really, really like how the cars look. The idea is that you could get outside of the car, open up the hood in the truck, and look inside of the car in first person. Is one of these like strange like car enthusiast things that most people don't really get. It's the same thing with Kazunori from GT. Like, Kazunori very much likes cars.
We all know how freaking obsessive this man is with his cars.
He likes cars, so he likes every single aspect of cars. That's kind of the feeling I get from Driveclub, that they need to be car fanatics to essentially attract car fanatics, to say, we know what you like with the car. Yeah, you could see the car from a couple 4 feet away from behind the screen when you're playing a game, but you want to say it in first person. It's not enough that you're seeing the car from a distance. We want you to play this entire game first person. You want to feel like, A, you're driving the car. Get out of the car in first person. Look inside of the car. Go and look in the hood and do all these other fancy. That's really cool. And I think that that's one of these weird car enthusiast things that there are some people that in their minds, even though they don't vocally say these things, they're probably like, that would be a cool feature if I could just look under the hood of all these cars.
Right.
If they physically let you look under the hood of all the cars and the trunks and every area and space in the car. So, I mean, that's something one can't just vocally say that, and the publisher's like, okay.
This is what you, sir, are holding up on this generation.
Exactly. So, when they go and Evolution goes to make this game, they know that, hey, look, somebody out there wants this because we want this. So, I like the team behind it because they've done MotorStorm, and they're a strong team when they did their off-road series for PlayStation 2. They're a strong team. So, they know how to do good racing games. I'm really, really, really stoked at what they're going to do with it. They went on record to say that this is a game, like when they had the little interview with Game Informer, this was a game that they had actually planned to make on PlayStation 3. So they had planned to make this game for an entire generation. They were planning to make this game, and finally they're essentially going all out and making this game that they've wanted to make for such a long time, but they were tied up with MotorStorm, and clearly they are contracted out to make that game. So now they are kind of getting their chance to make their dream game. So I feel that when you give a company a chance to say, you know what, go make that IP you wanted to make, you essentially let them say, okay, now this is what we really wanted to do. So I feel it won't just be that game that Sony says, hey, we need a game, we need to have a car, can you put it in? This is a game that they're saying they wanted and they want to do. So it lets me feel that they're positive. This is not just a game that was just tacked on or a bullet point to check off of Sony's list, as much as Evolution is saying we wanted to make this game for a long time and we're bringing a game like this. So it makes me feel positive about what they're going to make.
Yeah, out of respect of the MotorStorm series, because I've always liked MotorStorm. MotorStorm was a good PS3 franchise. They made some good games for that. I can see myself liking a game like Driveclub. At the same time, it's still a racing game.
Craig's is like, well, if it's a racing game, I won't like it. But
not that I won't play these games. Like I said, I won't play any game once. All right, like that's my theory. I will try any game, but it's just like I've been playing games for so long. I realized that like. You tell me, like, ask me what a good game is, a racing game is never going to come to my mind, and I'm sorry.
No, you're right, Craig. No, you're
but
right.
it's just my personal preference, I guess.
It's a niche thing. I like racing games in a small respect.
Just like I like tower defense games, bitch.
Yucky. Ew. But even with myself, in terms of actually playing racing games, the only racing game that I ever cared to actually complete in a large number of series have been all the Gran Turismos.
Right.
So it's like having a sim racer like that where it's literally closer to an RPG than anything, just based on the idea that you're winning races, that you're getting money, that you're fixing up your car, you're adding things to make it better for specific races. If you let's say you got a race and there's a lot of turns in this race, then you're going to want to detune that engine and you're going to want to do some other stuff because you don't need that much power to do these turns. You want to go for stability.
Right.
Or if you have a race where there's a lot of straight paths, you want to make sure that engine is much more powerful for the straightaways because that's where the match is going to get won, is at the straightaway.
Right.
So it's like all these things go into to playing a GT game and playing a different map and getting a specific car for a specific challenge, getting specific tires for a specific challenge. It just gets to a strange RPG feeling where it's like when you plan to go into a race, it's almost no different than when you plan to go into, just we talked about this in episode 2 into the Foxhole, of when you plan to go into a dungeon in RPG, there's something strange and something fun about the planning. The planning is almost just as fun of, I'm going there, gonna do this, that, and the third. In GT, it's no different. It's you have your base car and you're gonna say, okay, I'm going on this map, dungeon. I'm going on this map, dungeon. After I go on this map and dungeon, I'm gonna get these armor, tires, and I'm gonna make sure I have this engine, sword. So it's like that's exactly how it is. So you get this cool feeling of I'm really preparing to do something. I may fail, but I'm preparing. And that analogy is nice analogy. It really is how I feel about the GT games. It's really the feeling that I get when I play a GT game. So I want Driveclub to give me that feeling, but not in a hardcore sim focus. Because when I play a GT game, I don't play it for you get 20 hours and beat the game. It's not how it works. When I play a GT game, it's no different than an RPG. I could play a GT game for 70, 80, 100 plus hours and still not get everything inside of the game. Right. It's a very, 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 very difficult game to get everything inside that game and master and finish everything in a game. So I want to get that feeling in a lighter mode. I want to say, hey, give me Driveclub, let me upgrade my parts, let me go in and play with friends and do all this fanciness. But, I still want to get that feeling of, there was a race that's here, there, and there. Let me prepare for it. Let me change my tires. Let me do this with my engine. Let me detune this, or let me retune this. Let me add this. Let me add that. If they give you that whole custom ability, which is not really in GT. It's not in GT because that's not really GT's main focus, and I'm 100% okay with that because I don't play GT for that. So it's like, but I would like to play Driveclub for that. I want to say, let me change something in the car, but that's not something that's ever been even a little bit hinted at in the game, and I think it might be because some of the manufacturers may not actually want some of the stuff changed on there. So the time will tell whether any of that is really on there. They didn't really get too much time to talk about Driveclub, but the little trailer that they showed with some of the gameplay just looked so awesome, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking that game up.
True that. So can we do it? Is it okay now?
You may.
Oh, yes. So, if you didn't know, a tiny company in Japan decided that they were going to come out into the Sony press conference. And one of the members of this company, a semi-known developer by the name of Tetsuya Nomura,
He's from Squaresoft,
came out and they said, we have a live feed of Tetsuya Nomura right now, and he's going to talk to you about some stuff. Yeah. Comes out and says, guys, I have a lot of stuff planned for you, and here's one of them. Bam! We get a fucking trailer that me, as a JRPG fanatic, has been waiting for since 2006.
Pretty much. There's a game.
Freaking Final Fantasy Versus 13. And when I tell you, this game still impresses me from the first day I freaking seen it.
It was popping.
It was in freaking insane.
People were moving. Things were happening.
But one thing I want to stress. we look back at episode 6 E3 predictions. Me and Edwin, we went ahead. We talked about a little thing. You know, maybe Final Fantasy versus 13 would
they ain't ready for that.
Would go ahead and change to a little title known as Final Fantasy 15. Well, guess what?
They ain't about that life, bro.
At the end of this trailer,
they ain't ready for that, though.
It was revealed that indeed Final Fantasy versus 13
ready for the bomb, bro.
has changed its title to Final Fantasy 15.
They ain't ready for that news, bro. They ain't ready for that news, bro. They ain't ready. Called it. That's how you hype on the news.
So Final Fantasy 15 debuted, well, not debuted, resurfaced with a excellent trailer. Maybe this is my bias. Maybe it could be my bias completely.
No, it was an excellent trailer.
It was a freaking excellent trailer, debuting a lot of crazy story aspects. Like me and Evan talked about this, how it's a very standard Japanese trailer.
Pretty much. How
they start off with story, in the middle they show gameplay with people from the story talking over the gameplay, ending with another story ending. Classic Japanese trailer setup.
Classic.
But you get a good sense of a good sense in a Final Fantasy sense. Like, what I mean by that is that they say a lot of stuff that seems very dramatic, and it is, I'm sure, but it's still like, what the fuck is going on?
Pretty much. They're very much making it nice and convoluted, and I think that's good because it's trying to show that there's some sort of complexity to the story.
To me, though, that's something that we've been kind of wanting. Like, I mean, as a Final Fantasy fan, we're used to complex plots.
Yeah,
this is what we kind of want. I mean, 13's was complex in a bad way, in the sense that like the character didn't like the story wasn't really worth caring about. But with this game, it's like, it's very, I don't know, something about this main character and the whole, it almost seems like a very modern yet fantasy.
Yes.
Like they even said in the trailer, a fantasy based on reality. It seems very reality based in the fact that like it almost seems like the main character is the son of like a major corporate head, it seems like.
And when Craig said that, like, that was like spot on, because it's something that doesn't need to be said, because they clearly show him driving in the back of a really, really, really fancy car.
Yeah.
And even in the very, very, very first trailer that they showed of this game ever, where they show him fighting the goons and he had his little swords that he was beating them up. After he was done, he gets out, walks out on this little, the stairs and beats up some more goons and gets inside this car, but he's now getting inside the back seat. So the idea of him getting inside the backseat of this really fancy looking car, showing that he's of some sort of power. He's sitting on a throne in the beginning of the show. So there's a lot that it's saying about his character, even though clearly some things have changed. And this is now titled 15, and maybe some stuff would change in the narrative. I don't think too much.
Yeah,
he's still ahead of something.
Exactly.
There's still some sort of royalty involved. You could tell by the polishing of the furniture, polishing of the silverware, all the furniture, everything is this high-end, fancy. Even in
the trailer itself, you have the whole. There's a good portion of that trailer, the gameplay portion of the trailer. It looks like it takes place like in the very first gameplay segment they actually show. It almost looks like it takes place in like a mansion of sorts.
Yeah.
Like these are the type of environments you are probably going to see a lot of in like these like high business class places and like these really rich homes and rich environments, like a high class sort of environment.
The thing I really, really, really like about it too is that afterwards in one of the TGS ones where they showed him in that little high rise and he was in some sort of like nice fancy dinner party type of deal, is when you see something like that and you kind of establish that he's just rich dude, that he's a person that either is really rich or he has some sort of wealth and power, and this is very much established by the clothes that he's wearing, the car that he's driving, inside that he's not even driving, somebody else is driving, he gets a damn chauffeur.
Exactly.
So it's like the idea of all these people doing this for him, you clearly know he comes from some power, some sort of wealth, and he is a person of importance. When he's at this little dinner party in TGS, it's very clear he's of some sort of importance. Now, the point I would like to make about this in terms of all other Final Fantasy games is most Final Fantasy games in terms of characters have always done the typical, he's just this normal person from either poor kid from the slums or this, that, and the third.
A lot of Final Fantasy themes like stem from like a rebellion in a sense. So you got these guys from like the lower class places rebelling against some sort of higher power. Biggest example, Final Fantasy XIV. when you have like the Avalanche rebelling against Shinra and things like that.
Pretty
That's
much.
always been a constant theme in the Final Fantasy games. So this is something completely different.
Even in following afterwards with Sayadate in Final Fantasy IX being like a little poor kid from the streets and then trying to kidnap this princess.
Exactly.
I feel like that's a theme that plays through a large number
Final
of the Final
Fantasy
Fantasy
VIII,
games.
you literally try to assassinate the person who's trying to take power.
Yes. So it's like through the games you see that through the games that you'll see. We have a drunk with us. You're drunk.
It's okay. We can edit that. Don't worry about that.
But I won't like doing it. That's being at like what, 25, 26? Okay. Now, where was I? What was I saying before I stopped?
We were talking about
the protagonist that was being poor. So they've done this in many Final Fantasy games, but I like that in this Final Fantasy game there's some sort of a role reversal. I like the idea that with the role reversal you essentially have, well, now the guy is the rich one and he is now the one that has all this wealth and power, but he's also the main character.
It almost seems like from the trailer it's like he's fighting to keep it as well.
Yeah.
It seems to be like a lot of like political intrigue in the sense like he's like trying to get like these powers almost like trying to get usurped from him.
Yeah, so it's like I like that there's some sort of power struggle going on. I like all the intrigue that they're showing. I like that they're kind of showing that he's not like either a thief or he didn't just do something to get this wealth. I like that they're showing he was born into this wealth.
Right.
As if to say that he has tough decisions. This wasn't his choice. He was born into a situation that clearly that you could see conflicts having to arise from this.
Another thing too, like what it almost seems like is like you see for this character what seems to be like his father a good portion of the game, and he's there for a lot of the game to the point where it almost seems like maybe this character could be sort of naive. Like, it almost even hints it towards the end. Like, he wants someone to explain something to him, but he tells him that it's complicated. To the point, like, it almost seems like he's very naive to everything that's happening around him. And maybe us playing as him, we'll get to learn about the complex struggle that's been happening between his father and whoever's opposing his father and things like that. So there's a lot of crazy things that could be happening here.
For all we know, I wouldn't be surprised if the guy that they're showing inside of the trailer isn't his father. I wouldn't be surprised if the guy's not his father, but he's a guy that's probably took care of him after the father died from something.
Maybe he needed like a successor and took him in,
So there's something I feel about it that he has the one little sword power and the other guy got the sword power. That just like you were saying before, that there's something linked about it. I actually never even thought of that, even after seeing the trailer so many times. It never once hit me. I just thought that these were clearly some sort of power somebody had.
Yeah. The thing is, what I want to mention is, we talk about how he's, rich dude, corporate society, born into money. This isn't to say that this guy's going to be some sort of pussy. Because from the freaking gameplay, this dude is doing some type of craziness. If you haven't known, Versus 13 was designed to be an action-based RPG.
Pretty much.
It was designed by Tetsuya Nomura, who, as you know, made the Kingdom Hearts games.
Of Kingdom Hearts fame.
Yeah, so he designed Versus 13 to be somewhat, the story was supposed to be somewhat connected to Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy Agito 13, which changed to, what was that game called again?
Type 0.
Type 0, thank you. So these games were all supposed to be linked together, but Versus 13 was supposed to be an action-based game. So for them to call it 15, this is going to be the first numbered Final Fantasy to be an action-based game. But from what I've seen, that's completely okay because the gameplay just looks freaking insane.
I look at it like this. At this point, there's a first time for everything.
Exactly.
It's just like, you know what? Fuck it.
We have numbered Final Fantasies as MMOs. I'm pretty sure it's okay.
At this point, it's like, just fuck it. Whatever takes it, this goddamn game. Just fuck it.
So, needless to say, like I said, I'm a big JRPG fan, like we mentioned earlier. I'm a huge JRPG fan. My favorite franchise of all time is Final Fantasy. So to tell me that Final Fantasy 15 is coming out and it was Versus 13, which is what I've been waiting for forever, I am so stoked. Like, I can't even put it into words.
Greg's like so close and so far.
I'm telling you, the one thing that bothered me the most was that no release date was announced.
Pretty much.
That's what pissed me off the most. Like, this game's been in development for so long, and you can't give me 2014.
As if that wasn't even the worst. And then following this, you go on showing some trailer, and then it goes on showing Sora. and it shows some other characters, and then it goes showing like Kingdom Hearts 1 and shows Kingdom Hearts 2. It basically shows the name of all the other Kingdom Hearts characters. All of a sudden, a sword drops on the ground in the sand, and then yellow shoes coming around, and it's Sora, but next gen Sora.
When I tell you next gen Sora,
it looked
next gen
awesome. It looked
Sora.
very awesome.
So the art direction they decided to take with Kingdom Hearts 3 and the announcement of Kingdom Hearts
was
3
classic Kingdom Hearts.
Was like I can't imagine them doing it any better.
It was classic Kingdom Hearts.
It was so beautifully done.
Kingdom Hearts.
It was so beautifully done to the point I was watching it with my girlfriend. We were watching it and she even said, "Wow, that looks so good." I'm like, "You're damn right it does. It's Kingdom Hearts
That's how you advertise it right there." She's like, "That look good."
And this is a girl who we were watching Division and she tuned out. She tuned out during the Division.
The fact?
But Kingdom Hearts 3 came on, she saw that, and she's like, "Damn,
there was colors." First off, the Division got gloomy, want to go to sleep colors. Kingdom Hearts got wake the fuck up colors, alright? If you went to a party wearing the color palette of Kingdom Hearts, you would stand out more than if you were wearing the color palette of the Division. True or false? Or were you not tired? Rest my case. The Division is a great game, Greg. Rest my case.
Vanessa, can you just give me one sentence on what you thought about the Kingdom Hearts 3
Ubisoft money hat.
One sentence, please. One sentence.
It was awesome.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Ubisoft money
Beautiful.
hat.
Beautiful.
And just from that, Squaresoft money hat, confirmed.
Like, granted, like...
I'm biased because I hate shooters.
Well, there you go. Yeah, she's not a fan of shooters.
The fact?
But like when you talk about Kingdom Hearts 3 in the reveal trailer, it's just like she said, the colors and the way it was presented was just so beautiful. Like I can't put it into words.
In HD, it is just classic Kingdom Hearts.
If you haven't seen this trailer and you're like, "Oh, Kingdom Hearts is stupid, got Disney," watch this fucking trailer. Watch the reveal.
At this point, I was like, that Kingdom Hearts is catering to Kingdom Hearts fans.
I don't care.
Who doesn't know Kingdom Hearts just
kill
themselves.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You watch that trailer. That is how like you have all your money. Like people always complain. People complain all the fucking time how you have these games, these shooters with their gray textures and their dark tones and their boring atmospheres.
I like the Division.
Look at me too. I love the Division. I do love the Division.
Gloomy Gears of War.
But you look at a game like Kingdom Hearts 3 and the type of colors they use and the atmosphere. It's just a gorgeous fucking game.
Too bright of a
Granted, we're not going to see this game for a very long time.
Trying to see how
do not get too excited for it because you have to wait for 15 to finish.
Pretty much.
And then we'll talk about Kingdom Hearts 3.
That game gay.
But
they got Disney characters.
Square Enix, man. We had some troubles. We had some rough times, and I stuck with you, and I'm proud that I did. I am proud that I stuck with you till this very point because I am super excited for 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3.
Fuck those boys,
you
dog.
Couldn't have shown me anything better this E3.
X2?
Thank you so much.
When they made X2, dog.
I'm done.
What about when they made X2? That's all I got.
We're not talking about X2.
I'm just gonna be like,
X2 isn't a thing.
I'm just gonna be like, for
X2 doesn't exist.
Yeah, they made X2. I'm happy that they're doing Kingdom Hearts, but I really think that it's gonna sell to the Kingdom Hearts fans. I don't really know how anyone's gonna take to an IP that they don't know. Especially
if you guys are confused about the story, another link I want to go ahead and reference to you is the game trailers. They have the new series called Timeline that they've been doing. What Timeline basically is they take a video game series.
Retrospective
thing. They do a video game.
A chronological order.
Yeah, they used to do a retrospective, but now they do like a timeline, and they basically explain to you like a story of events and how everything has led up to this point. The first one they did was for Zelda. They just did a Zelda one, which was good, but then recently they just released their Kingdom Hearts one, and they're alluding that the next one's going to be Metal Gear Solid, which will be another interesting one to see.
Awesome! I want to see.
So yeah, it's really, really well done. If you've been playing all the Kingdom Hearts games and you're confused about the story and like what Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to show, that is an excellent video that you should watch.
Especially if you don't want to play Recoded.
Exactly. Especially if you don't want to play a lot of the games. It'll tell you what the important things that you need to get out of these games. and how they're going to affect Kingdom Hearts 3. It's a very good video to watch. The
Especially-
timeline trail, like I said, is going to be in the description below.
Especially because we're going to drop another Megaton on you right now. Especially if you're an Xbox One user. We know this is a Sony portion of it, but this is news regardless.
Oh, for
but
sure.
Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts Kingdom Hearts 3 will be on the Xbox One. I'm not really sure day and date, but it will be on the Xbox One. When it actually does release, because Kingdom Hearts is not a series. I don't even think, because I'm pretty positive the HD version is only on the 3DS and on the PlayStation 3. I don't recall it actually being on the Xbox One. So basically, it's not on the 360 and it's also not on the Xbox One. So I mean, with that being said, it would mean that in order for you to play the series, if you own an Xbox and only own an Xbox, which I don't think is the case, I actually believe that if you played this series before, you probably own the PlayStation system, and let's say you didn't own a PlayStation 3, there's nothing stopping you from buying a PlayStation 4, which in my opinion, in many people's eyes, is the preferable system. So it's like, for the Japanese RPGs and for a lot of games, it's the preferable system. So I sort of see, and even fans, I don't really see much fans being in a situation where they own an Xbox One yet get Kingdom Hearts. So I see it as being as you're bound to go ahead and end up purchasing the PlayStation 4 version. But if they are in a situation where for whatever reason the system that they do primarily own is an Xbox One and they do want to play Kingdom Hearts 3, definitely watch that retrospective. We're going to put the link up for you on the bottom of this, so you could go watch it and catch up on what this series actually is.
For sure.
Or I would say, save the money. Get the HD versions, because the 2.5 or whatever they might be calling is yet to release.
For sure.
And I would recommend one a two.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, the Kingdom Hearts story is nothing to sneeze at. Like this is like some complex stuff is going on there. And when you watch the retrospective, they do their best to try to explain everything that's happening. Yeah, because it's a little. The video's pretty lengthy. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of games that they need to encompass, and
it's worth it though.
It gives a nice, clear view of what's to come and everything that's happened in the previous games. Like I said, I've said before, I can't recommend it enough. It's a really good video that game trailers put out.
It's like look at it this way, with how complex the Kingdom Hearts games are, they get more complex when you realize, okay, you have Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts 2 progresses what 1 was. It's a progressive thing. It continues after 1. Everything else essentially turns into prequels.
Right.
So that's where things get really confusing. So
exactly.
Kingdom Hearts 3, I mean, I'm assuming that it's continuing the series.
Yes.
I can't see it being
under. It is a sequel. It is showing everything that happens afterwards.
Yeah, so that's what gets really, 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 really confusing. So like anybody
you have like 7 games in this series. So I mean,
there's a lot.
I mean, you have Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, Birth by Sleep. You have Chain of Memories, Recoded, 358 over 2 days, Dream Drop Distance, and there's one more.
It was was it?
I'm missing one. I said Chain of Memories. I'm missing one though. I feel like I'm missing one.
You already said 2?
Yeah, I already said 2. I'm missing one of the handheld ones.
Are you sure you didn't say 1?
I feel like I'm missing one.
I'm
it's
joking.
really bothering, but whatever. You'll see it in the video. They cover everything.
Yeah,
but I feel like there's a lot of content to go over, but the story is very interesting.
Very convoluted.
It's very convoluted. I'm not gonna lie, it's very convoluted. If you're not into that sort of thing, Kingdom Hearts might not be for you. But when I tell you that Kingdom Hearts 3, just by the way it looks, it's just, I'm so excited, man.
Yeah, you get a very Kingdom Heartsy vibe from it too. It seems like even with next generation graphics and upgraded and so much power, that you're still able to get that same look without feeling dated. Like it looks like it belongs when you see it. So I feel they did a good job in having that same type of color palette and that same look and identity and art direction that they had in the original one. So you don't feel lost when you play. You don't feel like this is too much of a departure from the first and second. So the third one seems to pick off really easily from the other two in terms of graphically how it looks. Gameplay, is clearly going to be like the same Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, from what we saw, it's like the HUD is exactly the same.
Yeah, so
everything about it is like it's almost identical to what we've seen before.
Yeah, so it's going to be unfamiliar ground. So with Square, because prior to this, when me and Craig were talking, I actually, because of the company's direction, believed that these two games were only going to be on Sony's platform based on the actual company, the developer themselves, making bold changes, making lots of different decisions than they did before. We don't know what happened with WADA. We don't really know where this 106 reconstruction and loss came from. There's a lot of stuff that we don't really know. So for us, the only thing you could really go on that was a major change for them was that they went multi-platform for the first time with a game. So I mean, them doing this for the first time for a game and it being one of their first major big failures in a long time, you could clearly think that has something to do with it, either WADA or that game itself. So it's easy to believe that, okay, it's very likely to be on one platform if they really are changing that direction and want to focus. But the idea that this is on two platforms means that, well, they're focusing even harder. So now that they're on two platforms and they're very openly saying, hey, we're both releasing these both simultaneously on both of these platforms, and on top of this, Final Fantasy 15 is also being released on PlayStation 3. So that's really crazy. So you have them still being committed to that, the people that they still promised this game to, along with releasing it on two next-gen systems and making Kingdom Hearts on two next-gen systems. So I really believe they have their work cut out for them. But if they believe they could, launch it, if they believe they're positive about it, then, I'm all for backing that if they feel they can. Because they've shown that they have the attitude and that they have the confidence that they can back these things out. I think it's hard to make a claim of promising to get something released. And Craig and I had actually just read an article just a little bit before this stating that, well, Nomura's going to be on track. Things are going to happen. They're going to make sure everything goes on track. So
they were very adamant about saying that we're going to keep Nomura on track until he can release Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, and they say it in a joking manner, but I think they really are trying to reassure fans that the game is on track to be released.
I mean, we've all had our problems with Square Enix, especially this past generation with the PlayStation 3. I mean, for good reason. They've released a lot of crap, like
questionable games.
There you go. That's a better term for it. A lot of questionable games. So I mean, with this whole new look and new perspective on how they're releasing games and things like that, it's, to me, as a Square Enix fan, it's incredibly refreshing. It gives me confidence that the future holds something bright. And I think we may not get a complete answer until we get our actual hands on 15. But then again, I've always trusted Tetsuya Nomura. There's never been a shadow of a doubt that Final Fantasy Versus 13 was going to be a good game. What I had doubts in was the fact that I was ever going to get my hands on it.
Right, sure.
Now that they're telling me that I'm going to get my hands on it, Nomura's doing that, and now he's also going to be doing Kingdom Hearts 3. It tells me nothing but good things coming from the future from Square Enix.
Yeah, so hopefully that, because I feel with the x86 architecture on both platforms, I truly feel that they may not get bogged down and they won't have to make crucial decisions to essentially hinder their game in favor of going multi-platform like what happened with 13. So I feel that both systems having Blu-ray drives, both systems having that x86 architecture makes it absolutely prime and perfect for both of them to release on these platforms without any hindrance. And it's actually why Final Fantasy 15 is not getting a 360 version. Even though they didn't come out and say it, I believe that's probably why it's not getting a 360 version. Has to do with it doesn't have a Blu-ray player, and that was something that might have hindered any 360 version from ever releasing. So I feel if they feel that their game won't be hindered, if they feel that they could get the game released in completeness and fullness without having to change anything in favor of being multi-platform, I'm all for it.
The fact that Versus 13 never had plans for a 360 launch, like you said, because of the lack of Blu-ray, knowing Nomura, like you said, he would, like, when I tell you I trust Nomura, because he says that he does not want his game on the 360 because of the lack of Blu-ray, like he said, speaks volumes. Sure. And if he says that it'll work comparably on the Xbox One, I'm inclined to believe him.
I agree.
I'm inclined to believe him because, I mean, Nomura, literally, when I tell you Nomura has not made a mistake in my eyes ever in game development history, it's like he's one of my favorite game developers ever of all times. I love this man, and if he says that this is the right way to go, I'm gonna follow him until he gives me reason not to believe him, and which he hasn't yet.
So I feel the decision to put it on one platform versus the other very much shows that it was put on a platform for design in mind. And the idea that both of these systems have the equal install base out, both of these systems had Final Fantasy 13, yet one of these systems isn't getting Final Fantasy 15 is, in my opinion, showing that, hey, look, we're putting it on, it has nothing to do with install base and has nothing to do with favorism, because simply put it like this, one of these platforms is not even out yet. So to sit there and put it on Xbox One and the system's not even released shows that it has nothing to do with sales or install base, because he's releasing it on Xbox One even with its 0 install base, but not on 360. So it tells me that this is a design choice, and hey, he knows what he's doing and says, hey, look, if we're going to make this choice, let's make it right, versus wasting the team's time with making crap. So they're not going to go and hinder the game because it may not be feasible to put it on that size of a game.
For sure.
People need to understand that you're essentially making a game of the scale of Final Fantasy 15 with the same disk space Final Fantasy 10 and 12 were made with. That is not feasible. Mm-hmm. Even if you want to say, okay, we'll just do 5 or 4 discs like we did with Final Fantasy 13. But that's still not feasible when it comes to the understanding that, well, this is an open world game. What are you going to do? You go to one section, take out a disc every time you go a section?
Right.
So I feel that the design should not be compromised because of a hindrance on a single platform.
Amen.
Does it suck? Absolutely it sucks. It won't be on that platform. I feel sorry for them. But hey, I feel sorry for the people that didn't get Final Fantasy VII and 64 either. So it doesn't mean that we need to crap out a game because one system's not up to par.
Agreed.
Being up to par means you could get it. I don't mind a game being on another platform. I mind my game being quote-unquote gimped or hindered because of another platform.
Right.
Now, if they're releasing it multi-platform, I'm fine. It's the same deal with Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm okay with Metal Gear Solid 5 being released multi-platform, because if Hideo Kojima won't release Metal Gear Solid 4 due to what the limitations are in the 360, he won't do it with 5 unless he feels they could be pulled off for whatever reason. And I feel comfortable
especially
saying
someone like Hideo Kojima.
Yes. So these developers have big pedigrees. They have a lot of respect in the gaming community, not even just in the East, everywhere in terms of the gaming community. So when they hold back a game on a platform due to technical limitations or due to other reasons in terms of design, I'm okay with that. I'm more okay with that than if they decided to say, hey, look, let's just go multi-platform just for the fuck's sake of it, fucking up both games. And that's what happened with Final Fantasy 13. But the idea to say, hey, look, we're making a conscious decision to not put it on a platform that has 76 million units out is a big deal. It speaks volumes to say, hey, look, we're really not doing this for greed. We're really not trying to joust PlayStation fans. We're really trying to say, hey, look, we're trying to do what's best for Square. And at this point, Square lost so much money this generation that they need more money to make other Kingdom Hearts and other Final Fantasies. If it's not fucking up the version that I'm playing, it's fine with me. It only becomes a problem when it starts to mess with my version. Right. When I feel that the game begins to get hindered or limited because of another version not having something. Grand Theft Auto 4 essentially comes to mind as well. So it's like, I don't want a Grand Theft Auto 4 or Final Fantasy 13 situation happening with these games. But if they both have the same architecture and they both have the same in terms of format, I'm fine with it. I don't want any situation in terms of the format limiting something in terms of what the game could be, especially considering that format essentially could decide what that game could have been. So them both having the same format, I say it's still a good thing, because we'll get, if they make a lot of money off of this and everybody buys this game regardless of platform, you could guarantee that you might get 2 more Kingdom Hearts after this. What I want is, me and Craig discussed this on the second podcast of Into the Foxhole. What we want is those glory days of Squaresoft where you're going to get Kingdom Hearts 3, but you're also going to get 4 and you're going to get 5. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. I want a generation where I get 4 or 5, but I also want a generation where I get 16 and 17 in Final Fantasy.
Amen.
So that's a generation you want. That's not asking too much, because we got 10, 11, 12, and we got Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and we got Chain of Memories in one generation. So my opinion is we should get something exactly like that next generation. Mm-hmm. So everybody who thinks that's too much to ask for need to understand we were already given that treatment generations before past. We're simply asking for the same. So if they could pull it off with the x86 architecture, I'm all in for it. So
Amen.
hopefully this PC design makes it easier for them. I mean, I feel the PC design is making it easy for a lot of developers. The fact that they were able to say it's on both platforms, the fact that they're able to show us something, the fact that they already got Kingdom Hearts up next gen means that this architecture must make it like they're able to make it like that. It must really be helping them. So I really feel that this is a good thing that both of these platforms are running on this PC style architecture.
For sure.
So we definitely have other
as much as I would love to keep talking about Square Enix stuff.
No, all you guys need to know is there will be another RPG episode. Clearly.
Oh hell yeah, hell yeah!
Clearly.
I like literally I can make my own podcast alone just talking about RPGs.
We're getting RPG
and different stuff with RPGs, but this is our Sony press conference one, so we should go ahead and move on to Mad Max.
Yeah. Now this trailer, I like this trailer. This trailer made me sort of mad, and it's not a bad trailer. It's just that Craig knows how much of a Fallout fan I am. I absolutely love the Fallout series. I love 3. I love 2, but 3 was just my baby. I absolutely adored that game. Now, with Fallout 3 being such a great game, I'm thinking, oh, yep, Fallout 4 has been announced, guys. Here it is. Guy's in a desert wasteland. He's like wearing he had a little spike thing on his shoulder. So looking
like Master Chief from
pretty much. So he's going, and some guy's driving his car in the desert wasteland. Gets out of his car, sees this guy dying on the ground, and he goes. He's kind of looking at the guy, and he's kind of checking for him to see if he has anything on him. So what's great about this is I'm thinking, okay, here's this guy coming here, and he's looting him, checking to see if he got any stuff. And what was even more funny was when I saw what they were wearing, it just looked like Fallout. So now Fallout's art direction is very much taken from Mad Max. It's very much Mad Max. So with Fallout's art direction,
they've been pretty vocal about the fact that they actually take inspiration.
Yeah, they have been. They have very much been. So it's like with them taking that iconography and art direction and all those little narratives from Mad Max and putting them in Fallout. I mean, you have no choice but to think that it's Fallout. So I'm watching it thinking man, Fallout is looking so great next gen. Look at them showing off that badass Intech 5 engine. This game is going to be... Oh, wait a minute. No. I only got a Mad Max feeling after he pulled out the sawed-off shotgun. Right when he pulled off the sawed-off shotgun, I'm like, oh, it's Mad Max. And I was like, oh, God. Oh, God. Go inside the car, and then who's going to run him over? I'm like, oh, God, no, it is. This isn't Fallout at all. And then it shows Mad Max, and I was like, fears confirmed. No, it wasn't fears confirmed.
I mean, yeah, like you said, the trailer was good.
It was a good looking little trailer thing. I want to know more about it. I want to know what's good.
To me, again, that harkens back to the previous point I was making. How I'm not a big fan of actual trailers unless it's a very story implemented game. So what I'm really looking forward to is more gameplay elements from Mad Max and what we can see, how this game is actually going to play, what the hell I'm going to be doing in this game.
I also want to know.
So it was cool to see, but it's I want to see gameplay.
Yeah, I also want to know, is it going to be, because if you're concerned about it being a narrative, I want to know, is it Mad Max in terms of exactly a straight game of the film Mad Max from beginning to end?
Yeah.
Or is this Mad Max the universe, i.e. you play Max in a period of time prior to...
Literally nothing was said about
or after the events, or more prior or after the events of the film.
Yeah, nothing was said about the game other than the trailer that we were given. So, I mean, it's still up in the air what this game is going to be about, how this game is going to play. You can expect some shooting element because it's Mad Max.
There was a gun. So the idea that
they had a gun.
There are vehicles there. There is a gun, and so I think
we're talking about Halo.
Yes. There was no gun. Yeah.
By the way, Master Chief did not have a gun in the Halo trailer, so it's not a first-person shooter.
It's not. Many of I was telling Craig before that many of the elders were sitting in the room of Halo fans and twiddling their beards as they're showing the premiere of the trailer. And then one of the guys was saying that I hear there's a prophecy that there's no guns in the next Halo. And it was confirmed that Master Chief opened his palm. There wasn't a gun in there.
Nope, it was like a pocket weapon.
That was some dog tire.
I don't know what the fuck it was. It was some sort of necklace type deal.
Some sort of metal thing was in his hand. Wasn't a knife or wasn't a gun.
It wasn't a gun, yeah, exactly. It wasn't a weapon.
Could be. It could be. No, but it wasn't any of those. So.
Yeah,
Some guy's gonna run into the room and be like, oh, "There was no gun. They didn't have no gun in his hand."
That's Mad Max though.
But Mad Max, I'm thinking clearly open world. I see no reason why it can't be open world. It's gonna be straight up open world. So we're already getting an understanding of what's gonna be open world. Can't guess first person, can't guess third person. Not really fucking know.
Yeah,
so one of which. I think everything was running in real time, especially based on the hardware that both systems are running on. I could say real time. I feel confident to say real time anyway, based on everything we've seen from like Square's like Agnius's Philosophy demo and the Panther Ray engine. I would see really no reason why to use CG, considering that your game can look that good. So I mean, I want to see more of it. I'm more questionable about the studio. I want to know who's making it, because we know it's Warner Brothers, is doing publishing it, but I want to know like what's this? Is Rocksteady who's on this? So I want to look up who's really doing it, because if it's like Rocksteady or if it's another well-known team, I'm really curious to see how that is. That's basically going to gauge whether I give a fuck or not. But it's definitely it was a nice surprise though. Yeah,
it was interesting to see, but let's go ahead and just finish off the last game, Destiny, of course.
Well,
a game that we've both been pretty excited about.
I've been mega hyped for Destiny. But Destiny reveal happened, so for some first gameplay reveal. Well, I want to say first gameplay. Yeah, I guess. But first like extended demonstration, because everything we've seen from there was in an engine. So I would say first extended demonstration of the game was at Sony's PlayStation event, and it was the last game shown. And it looked pretty awesome. I liked what I seen. I only had a couple of issues, but the issues I had was merely because it's a conceptual thing. It's like in your mind you imagine something completely different than the reality of what it is. So the game starts off with I believe Jason Jones is actually there, believe it or not. But Jason Jones from Bungie's there. And he's playing the game as well with I don't remember who the other son of a bitch was, but he's playing the game with another Bungie staff member, and the game starts out with the Bungie staff member. You just see the plane is his ship that he has is flying, and he has this hatch open, and he's basically looking at the ground as the ship's flying, and he essentially jumps out of the ship. Now the way he jumps out of the ship doesn't look like it's a player controlled thing. It's not something that's done in first person. It's just like this thing that looks like it's done almost like an automated thing. Like you go there and it's like a mini cutscene, and then now you're really playing. So I personally didn't like that, because my understanding was that you have these ships, customize these ships, and will physically fly to these planets and then clearly get out of your ship where you choose. Not, okay, you get in a planet or you get in a ship, you press a button, appear in the other planet, and then you just jump out of the ship. That's not enough for me. So I hope that that's either A, cleared up, or B, if that's something that might just happen in that specific area or that game type. I don't know if that's something that's dealt with the entire other game world there. So he waits, and then he's calling for Jason Jones, because the main guy's playing a warlock, and I don't remember what Jason Jones' character's class is.
It was hard because they kept the screens kept jumping.
I think they both might have been warlocks. I don't remember. Both of them might have been warlocks, or the main guy was a hunter and then Jason Jones was a warlock. But one of them was a warlock and somebody else was a titan near the ending of it. So as they're playing, a ship comes to drop down Jason Jones. So a ship comes, and then he falls out, and the ship just essentially blasts away into like nothingness, into the sky. And I like that. Okay, they're showing the ships doing this, but I don't like that. It just seems that you're just kind of morphing. You're almost like it's fast travel. Like you go there, and though the ship's there, and though you actually see you getting out of the ship, it's fast travel. Like the ship doesn't stay there. You don't physically get in the ship and physically leave, as much as it's bam, here you are in this kind of robotic sequence. That's the only thing that I didn't like, because in my mind I saw it being a little bit more fluid and a little more seamless versus this, especially considering they're stating that there are no load times, or not load times, but there's no menus in their game. So I would like to know, like, if there's no menus in the game, what's good with this getting back and forth? What happens when I'm getting out of here?
Right. So there'd have to be a menu for me to choose where to go.
Yeah. So I'd like to know like what exactly is done to leave. So finally, they go inside, this dungeon that they're gonna go loot, and he pulls out this whole like weird spear thing, and then it goes looking around the place, and it's like this. It's really weird. It's like this weird computer spear thing apparently, and the weird computer spear thing goes like looking around, showing lights everywhere in this really dark place. Graphically, the game looks really, really, really good. In fact, the game looks much more impressive than any of the demonstration that they showed months prior. So it took me by surprise merely because I assumed it would look like something else. So I didn't think it was going to look as detailed, as high res, with great textures. I didn't see it looking the way it actually ended up looking in reality. I actually saw it looking a little bit different. So finally, when they're inside this dungeon and this little machine thing is looking around, I guess the machine thing that he had going around, the little hovering spear thing, finally the Navi ended up turning on one of the lights to the place. So the lights go on, they go looking around. Within 2 seconds, they're engaged in this battle with this little alien race. So they go and they're fighting the alien race, and then Jason Jones' character pulls out this magnum and he's like shooting them, and they're both like shooting these guys. They go through the place, killing a whole bunch of bad guys. Finally, they get near the ending, and there's this bigger dude, and he has like multiple arms, and he's like fighting him, and they end up fighting the dude, and then dude ends up killing one of the buddies. I don't think it might have been Jason Jones, but I think it was Jason Jones. So he ends up killing Jason Jones as his character, and then after it kills him, like you're whoever's playing the main character at that time ends up shooting the guy, and they kill him. So after they shoot him, he goes, and there's a revive thing where you go and you revive your buddy.
Right, yeah,
so
I remember that.
So now that he's revived, you go and then you go to where the actual enemy is, and you go to him, and you essentially take whatever the loot is that he had. Now, I wanted to see what else do they mean by this loot, because on all the concept art, you see money, you see gold, you see weapons, you see all these other things there in terms of when they discuss loot. Yet when they're showing us the game, loot is simply just this guy dropping this weapon for these two. But I look at it as, what else is in this place? Looting in my mind is not I killed the guy and got something. That's a different thing.
Right.
Looting to me is everything. Is you go there and this corridor, this place has stuff to explore, to take from.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm going to a place that I'm just merely looking for a person, that's sort of taking me out of it. So this is why when we talked about the vision, this is why I was like more hesitant to say I liked it more than Destiny. But at this point, Division's more concrete than what Destiny's telling me.
Right.
It's almost like Division in my mind is what I want, but Destiny is conceptually in my mind something better.
Right.
But in actuality, it's not. So in my mind, how I see Destiny is you go into this open game world where the main little traveler city is. You go in a hangar, get in your spaceship, and you fly out in real time. Fly into another planet in real time, loot it, take a whole bunch of stuff, get back on your ship wherever you laid it outside your dungeon, and fly back to the planet. In my mind, that is what Destiny is. So, if Destiny is not giving me even like one of those things, we're gonna have a problem. No, we're gonna have a problem. No, but you can't really do anything about that, because it's like, I feel sometimes that's the bad thing with releasing a concept or a trailer of something and not really explaining what it is, because you might like allude to maybe it's something else too much to the point where it's like people in their minds might have built it up to see something bigger than it really is.
No, I agree.
So I feel that even after we're just finished talking about the Final Fantasy stuff, I feel that some Final Fantasy games suffer from that syndrome of they can't live up to how long they've been delayed to. And I don't think that's going to happen with this game in terms of any release date, but I feel it might have in terms of conceptually what was not being conveyed for a very, very long amount of time between now and what was 4 months ago.
Right.
So I feel that now that they've shown it, now that we see what it is, I want to see more. So they kill this dude, loot the crap out of him, and then they walk outside. And after they walk outside, some dudes in their little speeder bikes. They're called pikes, but we're just going to call them speeder bikes. That's what they are. And dudes come out, and I don't even like the Star Wars IP. Don't hit me, Craig. So I barely know what a speeder bike is. Craig's putting his pen in a stabbing motion. But they come out with their speeder bikes, and which I don't even know where the fuck they got the shit from, to be honest with you. But that's another problem I have is like, okay, I came from a ship and I landed here. How do I get actual weapons? What am I getting from here? Mm-hmm. So my biggest problem is, okay, my ship just dropped me off here. How do I own another vehicle in terms of land? this is a place I'm coming to loot. Like, what do? Go in my inventory and they do like Capsule Corp in this bitch and this shit just pop out or something. So somebody's gonna have to explain to me if this has something to do with the Dragon Ball Z universe, bro. So I feel that it needs to be somewhat better shown, better explained.
Yeah,
because I feel
that's the exact point I was gonna bring up. I think what Destiny suffered from in this reveal is just his lack of explanation of like what's happening. Like we saw like very generic. You go into a quote unquote dungeon. You find the boss. You kill the boss, and you get the item. That's all we really saw. We didn't really see anything more as far as like what type of items like how vast or how expansive these dungeons are going to be,
because even
and like what sort of items we're going to be getting in this dungeon.
Because even when they show you just getting a weapon, in my mind I'm like, you just can't just giving out weapons.
Yeah.
Like in my mind I'm looking at it with all the gear that they showed on this character when he was equipping this weapon. Now they're showing legs, boots, armor, helmet, all these other different areas in which things can be customized, added on. That means the loot is enormous in terms of the amount of loot that's going to be given. I mean, yet we kill an enemy and we just get 2 guns. So I feel like both of them each got a gun for themselves. But the biggest problem I have is that can't just be all the loot. Where's the rest of the stuff here? Because Borderlands, when you're going and you're playing some of the game, you're getting a lot of different stuff. You're not just getting guns every little last second. So I feel that even same thing with Fallout, same thing with Oblivion, same thing with any RPG where there is traveling in multiple dungeons. You can't just go and kill the guy, give me kick some loot, and then that's it. There needs to be a part of the game where you don't need to beat a guy to get the loot. I don't think it could be, because every single time you do, and you're like, oh no, the Cabal's there. Oh no. Or every time we come here, another weird creature, aliens here. No, it can't just be that every single time. I feel you need to be able to go in a dungeon, search it successfully, and grab loot without really being randomly attacked, but sometimes being randomly attacked, just to make it more almost exciting, to make it really random attack. Right. So that way, it's like, yeah, I went to this dungeon, I searched, I had a good time going spelunkering and shit, and found this shit, and got the loot and left. And sometimes that feels good. If you didn't get any encounters, sometimes that feels good. But if you go to it, and because that happens to me sometimes in Fallout, I'll go in an area, in a house or a dungeon or any type of building, and sometimes I won't face almost any enemies and just loot the crap out of it. It was just an abandoned place. But sometimes when you go there and there are people there, it will take you by surprise, because sometimes you didn't expect anything to be there at all. So I wanted to have that type of feeling, but we don't really know 100% how that's gonna go. This is just one gameplay, reveal. I really hope they show something more, something else, to better explain what's going on with this game and how the loot is collected and how things are collected in this game. Because I definitely wanted that, but it sounds like something we might have to wait for something like a Star Citizen to actually give something that in-depth, considering how that game's made. So with the game, near the ending of it, it shows this scene where something called a public event happens, where the spaceship comes and it goes and crashes somewhere, and all of a sudden it's flying by you, and all these other ships are coming down, and everyone's going crazy, and all of a sudden this crazy big match happens where you're fighting all these little alien people and you're shooting them all, and it's kind of awesome. I just wish that it would happen in a different way. It just seems that it flashing on the screen is not. I want something seamless. Like I went there and it happened, versus bam, public event flashed on my screen. Yeah. That's something where I'm immediately taken out of it, and I'm immediately told I'm playing again.
Like you'll talk about like, oh yeah, the public event, how cool this is, but this is something we've seen a lot. Like if you've played the MMO Rift, this is like Rift is that's what like they based their game around. Something they based their game around, this whole public event, how every once in a while like a rift will open, and everyone in the entire area is alerted to the fact that this rift is now open, and you can go there. You can choose to go there and help out and close this rift. If you do, you'll get a lot of experience, obviously, because you're killing a lot of monsters.
Sure.
If you don't, you can just leave, and you're missing out on a lot of stuff, like a lot of loot, a lot of like. And if the rift, like, there's like something that happens, like the rift like stays open for too long, like these monsters like just like overrun the place, and all of a sudden it makes it a lot harder for people to do quests, and like quest holders will die.
That's actually really that crazy.
Yeah, like quest holders will die, and like make you like you have to like wait for them to like respawn and shit like that. So like if you have a quest that you want to turn in but you can't because you didn't take care of that rift, and like they ended up like storming
and
this
now
town
the
and killing them.
consequences is like messed up. That's awesome. That's actually
So yeah, it was a really cool game. But like these are like I'm saying these are concepts that we've seen before. So I mean like Destiny's hyping themselves up to be something this huge great something that, like you said, we have like all these expectations for. But if you're telling me that like these public events and things like that are what we're gonna see, it's like, well, I have this already. Just now you're giving me this in a shooter format.
Very true. So I feel they need to be very. I think they need to be a little bit more upfront and straightforward. I know it's fun to be a little cryptic and it's fun to kind of, be in there and kind of leave a little mystery to what's going on. But I actually think sometimes it might be best to be very clear with how these things work in terms of the traveling with the game, in terms of how open the game is too. I don't think it's right to say, well, it's an open world, this, that, and the third. Open world to me suggests that it is this open, seamless map, not, well, it's cut into these little baby segments that you go into a ship to go in and out of. That's not open world to me. So that's sandbox, that's not open world to me. Sandbox is the idea where it's a smaller little thing cut into different segments, where open world is the whole thing all together you get as a chunk. GTA would be a perfect example. You get that whole thing. There is no segment here, segment there, pause screen, go to a loading screen, take a plane somewhere. None of that happens. You essentially get that whole map. So open sandbox would be Zelda. There are a lot of open areas, but that's not a seamless 100% thing. There are different areas that get closed off that you go here and there. That's a completely different experience. So I feel that they need to straighten that up, because when you show something like this epic city under the Traveler, it starts to make you think, if the level I seen was as small as it was, granted we didn't get to see the whole thing, it makes me question, okay, let me see what the city looks like. Give me that so I can understand, am I really going to the city, or am I essentially going to like a park bench in like a balcony and essentially saying, yeah, you're in the city, or so I don't want something like that really crazy to happen. So
no, I feel you. I'm completely right there with you.
So I'm definitely looking up there for more stuff, and looking out for it. But it was an okay reveal. I liked a lot of what I saw. Only a couple of things I was sort of semi disappointed at, but I believe that was nothing. That's not Bungie's fault. But I do believe that I wish there was semi clearer, just a little bit.
All right, so to close out on our Sony press conference, we need to address
the Megaton
reveals.
Pretty
and
much,
that was basically all hard jabs that Sony was given towards
Pretty
Microsoft.
Much. Jack Tretton was essentially black and bluing the entire fucking company. When I say the whole company, they essentially just shitted on them.
Basically,
Jack had his turn with them. Yoshida tied him up.
Like there's no other better term for it other than, like you said, black and blue, and where you literally have a screen up on the wall so the entire conference can see, basically saying that we will not be doing what Microsoft's console is doing, like word for word.
Pretty much.
It's just
yeah. So Jack Tretton comes out, and one of the things that he comes out and states is that they will have no and they will have no restriction of used games. No restriction of used games in any way, shape, or form. Zero. Comes out and says there's no internet, connection required, and it comes out and says you don't have to check in every 24 hours. So he's essentially taking a jab at every single negative feature about Microsoft's system.
To the point where he's almost like saying word for word, like what Microsoft is saying, and saying no to that.
Is it? Yes. So, and I feel that, look at it this way, if that's a selling point to you as a consumer, it's very questionable about who Microsoft is trying to really sell this to. Are they selling it to you or to the publishers? Because it becomes a problem if another company could just say the exact opposite of what you're saying and turn out to be positive and get to a point where the audience is cheering so much, they were getting so loud, it got deafening, and it got to the point where they began to cheer Sony's name in the crowd. This is some craziness that I've never seen ever at any event, simply by just saying the opposite of what another company said. So it tells me, well, how bad was what Microsoft said for Sony to just say the complete opposite and get this type of, reaction. So Craig Akash have been very vocal about how we feel about Microsoft's system. Way, all the way. If you go and check back all the way in podcast 4, 5, we've been very vocal about it. 2, 1, we've been vocal about it in terms of how we feel about used games, how we feel about any type of restrictions upon used games. Always online. We are very, very, very much adamant about these things being something we don't want as consumers. We don't want to happen to any other system either, simply because we don't want that to roll over on our own system. If you think about it, it's like, yes, if this happens to Microsoft system, it's not a good thing to just sit there and be like, oh, it sucks for them. I feel it's part of our duty as some sort of gamers in this community to at least say, hey, look, that's not fair, even if we have no intentions to purchase that system. Because to sit back and say nothing and say, oh, well, too bad for you, is almost like they're trying to say, well, we didn't get a bad reaction to anybody, so we're going to do it. So what happens if they're successful and Sony says, you know what, we're going to do that too. Nintendo says we're going to do that too. So I feel that the community, regardless of what side people feel they're on or whether they support one or the other, it needs to be more about, if you're a gamer and this is stopping you from enjoying games, the same respect that you used to as a consumer, you need to say something against it, regardless of what side it's on, because this is bad. When the PSP Go failed, people stated they didn't want this. They want to be able to actually have their games. And the strange thing about the PSP Go is that PSP at the time wasn't even a wildly crazy popular system. So for people to have a backlash against that handheld was pretty crazy. So think about it with this platform. I can't have the future of my games tied to a system in a hard drive that can't be removed, that could only be played using the internet from permission from Microsoft. What that tells you is, even if I took this game and had all my collections on one system, went to a secluded island, I couldn't even play it. What does that tell me about the next 8 years then? What happens then when these servers are closed? When Microsoft says we're no longer doing the DRM check, your games are essentially brick. So what happens when they decide to say, you know what? We feel people have played enough of Halo 5. Halo 6 is coming out. Let's just close the servers for it. You'll buy Halo 6 because technically you can't play Halo 5 because we'll close it. So if they control whether this game can be played or not, they could essentially have the permission to wipe anything out. And they could have the free realm to do it. So I feel a lot of consumer rights are being violated here. I feel it hurts any core consumer, because DRM is something that is not there, to quote-unquote stop piracy. You don't hurt a damn pirate by this. You hurt the consumer. It's the people who are buying this that are getting hurt. And the craziest thing is, of all people who said this was Ubisoft who said this. And Ubisoft implemented the worst type of DRM on their Assassin's Creed games, and they stopped because they realized their sales were lowering because they weren't getting much sales, because people were like, well, should I buy this crap version? Why are you punishing them? It's not like the person who pirates this game buys it and says, yeah, let's do something evil with it. The person who pirates it is not even buying it to begin with.
Exactly.
So I feel that they're hurting everybody for some. And DRM is not there for that. So them trying to say DRM for piracy, I don't believe. DRM is there for control, and it's to control the free market. By controlling the free market and controlling used games, you could essentially decide how much money you make from it, who you're going to be cutting out, how long you keep a game on the market. You could essentially cut a game off the market as you felt like it. We see game servers close of games all the time. Now think about if a game lied on a server. MMOs, any type of game that's required to play online. If they could cut servers to games that just merely have online functions, what happens when the whole game is necessary to run online? So that becomes an issue of, I don't feel safe about my investment, because how I want to be able to pick my game up, system online or offline, put a disc in it, and just have the damn game play. You know what? If you feel that piracy is such a big deal, get the disc and put something in the disc that doesn't allow it to ever be copied. I'm fine with that, and I don't even care.
Right.
Because we have no use, we have no interest in copying it. Get something that makes it unreadable. Make the players special that it's unreadable. That's fine.
Right.
No one has the problem with that understanding. What we have a problem with is when you say, can't trade the game in, have to have your internet on for it, can't switch out the hard drive. That doesn't sound like a good future for anybody.
Right.
So I'm happy that another company is coming out and saying, no, this is bad, and people are finally figuring out that all the stuff we've been saying through a lot of our podcasts are not just us being crazy. We are not just cynical. We're not just saying this just because we're quote-unquote fanboys. People have a general concern about such a thing like this. And what was said last night essentially reiterated that This is not something that they don't want to do at PlayStation 4. This is something they don't want to do as a company, period. So what Sony essentially did in terms of positioning themselves in the gaming market is they didn't just come out and say, well, PS4 is not doing this. They said as a company, their beliefs are when you purchase the game, it's yours. It's your hard copy to keep and trade and do with as you please and as you see fit above the law. So in my opinion, that means that's not a PlayStation 4 thing. That's a Sony thing. You essentially put in stone that you could never do this on your future systems. Because what you're doing today is essentially saying, well, we kind of can't ever put such a restriction on our next systems. Internet or with used games. That's the way it should be with console gaming. Don't remind us, oh, well, when D&D is the future. Never mind any of that. Even if digital download is the future, it's not as if digital download become the future means that disc will disappear.
Right.
This will still be there for movie format. I question why it wouldn't be for gaming format. So if that situation is the case, then I feel as gamers, the thing that it needs to be changed is PC needs to be PC with install, console needs to be console, in terms of having a hard copy for you to keep as long as you wish. For people who think that, well, you don't own the media, you didn't make it, I didn't make it. But I gave my $60 for my copy. And I should be able to break my copy, snap my copy, give it to a friend, brother, sister, and do what I feel with it within the law. So I feel that that's fair enough. There's nothing that nobody's breaking by saying they'll do this. Any argument against used games in terms of an industry, like we were discussing on one of our podcasts prior to that, any argument based on, like I was on episode 5, any arguments that we would have towards, okay, well, developers need money, and used games are taking this and the third. There's so many free markets out there that I just don't believe that because it doesn't make sense. Because there are people who trade in their games, their used games, to buy brand new games. And say, you know what, I'm going to, let's say this fall, I'm going to buy Destiny and I'm going to buy Watch Dogs, but I changed my mind, I want Infamous. I may turn both of those games to buy Infamous brand new. So the people who are contributing to GameStop may not even buy used games. They may simply just keep buying brand new games. So the idea of that this is hurting somebody is silly to me. So anybody who's always putting on this whole violin thing of, well, Microsoft is doing it to help the industry, it's pro-industry. It's not pro-industry in my opinion, because it hurts the industry. It's not pro-industry, it's greed. This is no pro-industry involved in this. Because there's nobody saying that, well, there's a clause that says this money's going to go to a developer's family.
Right.
There's nothing saying that, well, with every sale, this number of developers is going to get kept. Look at, like we discussed before, the Battlefield DLC. They made over $150 million from Battlefield 3's DLC. Didn't fucking stop them from closing down that studio in I believe it was Canada that had Visceral's people in there. Or it was LA, excuse me. So for them to sit there and say, well, we're just going to cope up shop, take out like 1,000 people, and then make $150 million off of DLC, tells me that they don't care. They contracted you out to do a job. Whether they get paid or not doesn't matter to you. Simply, if I was a contractor and you were my worker, you work for me. Never mind what deal I just got. I got the deal. I paid you to do something. So the problem people have is they keep making it sound like, well, the developers are this. No. Developers not getting anything from this. They got paid whatever they got paid for the game. Unless there's something in their contract. If you're a big developer, great developer, producer, and there's something in your contract that states, hey, look, you're going to get X number of percentage of your game sales because you're that good. You can work that in your contract, that's fine. That's the only exception. But unless that's in your contract, then it doesn't really matter. So anybody thinking that such a thing being used in gaming would somehow mean that developers would get extra help and something would be better for them is completely false. In fact, it would hurt the industry in the respect that who wants to buy a new IP with the understanding you own that new IP in terms of you can't give it up. That $60 was spent, wasted. There's nothing you can do with it. So nobody wants to be in an industry like that. If you want to play that new IP, I mean, you really want to roll that gamble with $60, you can't trade it. You can't give it away. Nobody wants to feel they're going to go with established. How many companies want to make a new IP in a market where people are scared to buy new IPs?
In other words, people keep complaining that this is supposed to be helping the developer, but in a sense it's not. It's more helping the publisher.
Yes.
And what that is, it's like, that's like saying it's not helping, like someone's building a bit, like Donald Trump is building a building for his company, like what we're doing isn't helping the guys making the building. It's just helping Donald Trump, who already has millions of dollars already.
Absolutely. So I feel that that's something that people who talk about used games, the free market exists everywhere. And the problem I have is with used cars, it's with clothes, it's with any product. So what does it matter what somebody is doing with a product that was already bought? I kept my end of the agreement by giving you $60 for my game. You keep your end of the agreement by letting me play my game.
A lot of people, they come out and say like, oh yeah, well, the gaming industry doesn't have as many avenues of revenue as some of these other developers.
Which is like the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing that you hear. Like, oh well, you know, movies have their theatrical releases, they have their DVD releases. Well, it is a good point, but at the same time, you know that going in. Like this isn't news. This isn't something like, oh man, you know, I'm going as the game developer. I'm expecting to make just as much money as the guy who's making this movie.
Exactly.
Here. These are two completely separate things. They're both digital entertainment. That's fine, but they're still two completely separate things. So to say that they are the same is just bullshit. You know, like these are like making a game. You know, making a game going in that the only way you're going to make revenue off this game is by selling the disc.
Yes.
Right? You can try your best and like trying to make these little loopholes, but at the same time, like we've been saying, it's just that's just robbing the consumer of their rights of buying the game.
Absolutely, and the bulk of what they're going to be making is off of the disc itself. The problem I have is people seem to ignore all the revenue stream that came from gaming this generation. Last generation, before last, and people say, well, games getting more expensive, and I look at it like this: nobody fucking told somebody like Squaresoft to spend all this money on a fucking Tomb Raider game that's historically has never sold these numbers. Yet they want to say, well, Tomb Raider sales were low. You know, Tomb Raider, we thought it was going to do a little bit more. Their expectation was 7 million on a series that's never fucking did that. Yet they only sold about 3 million. You're just like, darn, that wasn't enough. 3 million is a huge number. For Tomb Raider, that's a big-ass number. Yet it wasn't enough. Why did you spend this much in your budget in anticipation to make 2 times as much on a series that's never done it? That's our fault that you rolled a hard gamble on something like this, or even more so, when any single time the subject comes up of well, gaming is more expensive than a generation prior to this, do they take into account that there are companies that are purchasing more teams now? That there are companies that are purchasing teams specifically to make downloadable content? Who told you purchase that team? Look at it like this. The companies that are now being purchased to sit there and do these downloadable content things, like I said before, if you consider they made $150 million off of Battlefield DLC, and if you look at Battlefield in terms of all the maps that are released for Battlefield, it's a lot of maps. But if you look at the idea that Battlefield has co-op, it's a single-player game with the maps, and if you look at the idea that the engine the game was based off of, they made their bulk of their money off of those damn maps. The percent, I mean, in terms of the profit difference was off of those maps. If you think about that, the workers that they paid to make those maps, they end up selling for $20 for a couple of maps. For 4 maps, the game was going to launch with more than 4. It's going to launch with like 12 maps. So if you consider it launches with 12 maps, single player, co-op, and all these experiences, and it's $60. Now consider they're selling this map pack for $20, and it's only 4 maps. So you're telling me that those 12 maps as a DLC pack will be $60. That goes directly to your profit versus the engine, the co-op, the single player, and everything else that went into this game as a $60 price tag. But when you equal the $60 for this map pack versus the actual man hours spent, that's how much profit these people are making. Yet we're making it seem as if, gaming is dirt poor, nobody's making no money. Gaming is making more money today than it has ever been in history of entertainment. You've seen games like GTA, Halo, Call of Duty crush records in terms of crazy entertainment records, beating Harry Potter and all these other movies, Avatar, Harry Potter, destroying them in terms of record breaking, in terms of amount of profit gained from some sort of entertainment thing within days of their release. So I don't really buy the idea that gaming is getting so damn poor that used games is the real thing that's stealing that money. I just don't believe it, because there's too many industries where the idea of used is much more of a big deal. Because you and I buy new games. Do we buy used games? Fuck yeah. We don't got no damn money like that, brother. Okay? So I don't know where they think this is. We're not going to buy, but I'm not going to buy a brand new game. A lot of times, launch of a system, I'm going to buy some brand new games. It's a great if IP I like, we're going to buy it. You know that's the thing that's we're most likely going to do. But if this is a game I just want to try out, if this is an old IP, if this is a game I'm like, man, I really wanted to play that game a couple years ago, let me go try it and let me go pick it up. I'm not going to go spend $5-6 extra on it brand new when in reality I could go and get it cheap and used.
Right.
Period. And if I like it, I'm going to say, damn, you know what? I really like this IP. I'm mad that I missed it. Day one, the next one. And I've done this with many games. Adam and our good buddy Adam, I don't know if we mentioned that in another podcast, he purchased this game. Me and Craig bought Adam some of these games, and he went back when the sequels of these games came back, and he purchased them brand new. I bought Adam Dead Space used.
Yeah, it's like Adam's favorite franchise.
Adam loves that franchise. Adam purchased Dead Space 2 day one and Dead Space 3 day one. So I don't like the bullshit of used games, this, that, and the third.
Tell you how many people like.
I spent $6 on the game. Adam gave you guys 120. Shut the fuck up when you try to tell me you lost something. You gained a consumer because of that shit. So I don't really believe the notion of that because car companies exist even though we all buy used cars. Ain't nobody here buying a fucking brand new car, alright? Yet car companies exist. So
that, no, I was gonna say basically like I can't tell you how many countless people who have done the same thing like Adam has. I have countless friends who are like, you know, I bought this one game used, and then the rest of the games I bought new because I freaking love the franchise now. I mean, this is just something like you understand like how much used games. I mean, granted, there are gonna be those people. I'm not gonna lie, there are gonna be those people who like, man, I buy used games and I only buy used games. I'm only ever gonna buy used games. Those are those people. But you have to understand, I think us as gamers, like, we are a very unique type of people. We love games so much that we want to support these developers a lot of the time. There's a lot of people out there who want to support the developers, and they will go out and they will come out day one. It's not like, to me, it's not like GameStop's hurting on reserves.
Exactly.
Like when you see reserves going out on GameStop, there are people reserving games all over the fucking
just put it
place.
this way,
like the second day, it could be hard to find the game.
And looking at it this way, just today I reserved Watch Dogs with my PlayStation 4. A new IP, brand new, I reserved. So for anybody to make it seem as if, well, used games is hurting anybody, that game was new before it was used. It is not, used games don't just make more used games. No. That game was new at one point. So if there is a guy and he really does never buy any games new, he just always buy games used, I look at it like this. What is it anyone's business that he does? Because realistically, that game was new. Someone did buy it and they gave it to him. They paid their share. It's no different than if I had a little brother and I said, you know what, after I'm done with all my games, I'm going to give them to you. So what is the game industry losing when I give it to my little brother? I fucking already paid you the money to your game.
You know what?
Why would I pay you again?
You know what I'm start doing?
Why would my little brother get paid? What did he do?
You know what I'm start doing? Once I'm done with all my clothes, I'm gonna hand it down to my little brother. But then I'm gonna send a check to South Pole. I'm gonna send a check to Echo. I'm gonna send a check to all these other clothing designers because I feel like they deserve a cut because my cousin's gonna get to wear these clothes as well now
for free, as if to suggest that Greg somehow was hurting them, as if you didn't buy them the first time and they weren't yours, but you were leasing them or licensing them out.
Yeah, no. to not be the dead horse, we obviously don't agree with Microsoft's game plan this generation.
Absolutely not.
And the fact that Sony attacked it so like verbatim was a big deal.
They attacked it pretty vigorously, and I think it was smart of them to do it. And I think this puts Microsoft in a very bad situation. They're not in a situation.
They kind of look like the ugly man.
Yes, in this situation,
the ugly kid at the school dance now.
Pretty much, it's like you're fucked because if to change what's in your system, it's too late. The hardware for both of these platforms is very much already being developed to be launched. Sony is even stating that they're behind and that there's going to be not a lot of shipments at launch, despite them already developing before Microsoft. So Microsoft is in a situation where it's like, if you do want to change it based on all the backlash that's now being received, I mean, at this point, you're essentially launching your system next year. You won't make it. You have to now do a new advertising campaign. You're probably going to lose exclusives because those contracts still mean that, hey, we made a contract with you. You need to keep your end of the bargain that your system's there for a game to release.
Right.
Why would Capcom make a contract for Dead Rising to be released if your system's not even out. Yet here's a PlayStation 4 selling and releasing it for yours. So
we're too far into this to say that they can pull out
yes,
now and
absolutely,
change anything.
Absolutely correct. I think it's to a point where you can't do anything. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they might have to ride out this generation and take the loss, or release another system and hope to break even off of the loss that they just spent. If you consider they spent $1 billion on marketing to have to spend another to remarket, I don't think they want to take such a loss, and I don't think they can afford to take such a loss. So I think their smartest decision is to go in there and still release the system. Yeah. The best thing they can do is to essentially erase any idea of releasing any type of infrastructure with always online. Essentially, the hard drive thing would have to stay. They would essentially have to redesign the system to be able to play off of the disc. I don't even know if there's a software thing that could essentially, or patch that could stop it from doing that. But I believe that there has to be, because clearly there's a Blu-ray player. Mm-hmm. And the games could play off the Blu-ray player during the install. But after the install, they're on the drive. So if they could go and release a patch that just allows it to play on the player and just no more installs at all, to put the software to make that not happen, that they could be fine. But that's what they need to do. But they will still suffer this generation because of that backlash. Sure. That backlash will last this whole generation. If you consider how long Sony's lasted, just simply by releasing a $600 system, never mind that they had a sick first party, never mind that they had the most companies, they suffered a backlash for years to come for this launch. Microsoft is going to suffer much more longer, simply because people are still going to come at them with that understanding that you support not used games, you support online only, and all these other stuff. So that's the way they're gonna see it, and I feel that Microsoft needs to do their best to change that, because you don't want to be on the receiving end of the market leader saying that they're not doing what you're doing. Because when you look at it, one lost 5% stock, the other gained close to 10. Mm-hmm. So I look at it as Sony's gaining more than Microsoft is losing. So in a situation with a person that's now gaining more saying that they're doing the opposite of yours, you probably need to change something. So I think if they try to go in it, Sony releasing with their system is going to destroy them. And if you didn't think this was bad enough, at the ending of the press conference, they announced the price of the system, and the price of the system is $399. Mm-hmm. So to say they're pricing it, if they priced it at $499, in my opinion, would have been aggressive. Simply because to meet them at that price and also state that we also don't do this, that, and the third makes it say, hey, look, for the same price, you're getting better. But now they're saying for cheaper, you're getting better with better hardware.
Yeah, to me, if they had priced it at $499 along with Microsoft system, it almost literally come down to the choice was like, are you for this whole DRM thing or are you not? Sure. That's what it would have come down to. It's like either one or the other. You're on one side of the fence or the other.
Sure.
But now, because Sony has priced it just like $100 cheaper, which is a big deal. Now it's not only the fact that they have the DRM, but now it's like, oh well, this one is actually kind of cheaper. Which you have the casual, the more casual people. When you have someone's mom going out and saying, "Oh, for Christmas," they're like, "Oh, well, there's a PS4 to Xbox One." The representative can talk all they want about how Xbox One is better, blah 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 blah. What the parent is gonna see is, well, this one's $400 and this one's $500. I'm gonna get the $400 one because it's simply cheaper. Yes. I can afford this, and it's something that my kid is still gonna want.
Yes. And another thing to note is, just from Yoshida coming out and having that really funny video about saying, okay, the PlayStation games are sharing, to have a funny video like that and to market something like that is to say that your company is very much really against it in a joking manner. I've never really seen, ever, any company directly make fun of another company because of something like this. They directly were advertising direct against the competition to the point where it's like, what could Microsoft really come back and advertise against them directly? Sony at this point and Nintendo are essentially looking like fucking saints. You can't say shit about these guys at this point right now. So it's like, Microsoft becomes an easy target, but they did this to themselves. So it's like, you can't say anything against Nintendo. Does Nintendo have weaker hardware? Yes, But realistically, after Xbox One's hardware reveal, it's not by as much as people think, especially if you consider they're closer to each other than the Xbox is to the PlayStation 4. So it's hard to combat against competition from both ends with nothing, where it's like both competition has ammo against you. So the best thing you need to do is to retreat that charge and say, we need to get back to the consumer base. The consumers know what they want, and they make their decisions with their wallets. And I feel Microsoft tried to do this anti-consumer thing, where regardless if it was, publisher pressure or not, in my opinion, doesn't matter. Because Sony didn't do it, Nintendo didn't do it. We're publisher pressure. Neither of those systems did it, but yours did. So I feel that if they're going to do this, they're going to have to take a loss, and they're going to take a beating doing so. Because I feel that Sony is probably going to be very fucking relentless. Because the release and advertising thing, the day of E3 to release that advertising
with an advantage like this, you can't afford not to be.
Exactly.
You need to convince everybody that, listen, this is what the competition is doing, and this is what we want to give to you.
Yes.
So this is why you need to buy our system, because not only is it $100 cheaper, but we are not changing anything that you've grown accustomed to as a console gamer.
Yes, and I like that they reiterated as a consumer. And I like that they made it very clear that this was not a PlayStation 4 thing, that this was a Sony thing to a consumer thing. Mm-hmm. Because it made it clear that you wouldn't have to worry about another PlayStation system doing it or another PlayStation handheld trying to do it. It made it clear that this was all around wrong in terms of ethics as a company to try to do such a thing. My biggest problem, aside from Microsoft doing it, was that there was no real reason. There was never an excuse. There was never really anything to really say why they did it. It was almost as if they did it with an arrogance of, we're doing it, deal with it. As funny as we keep joking about the Adam Orth thing, that's the attitude that Microsoft is dealing with this. Mm-hmm. Almost as if to say, and we're doing it. Yeah. And that's how they acted like when they're showing this thing off. And to sit there and have this whole policy thing and to never even come on stage to discuss this policy thing is even more cold. Because it's like, you're not even coming on stage formally. None of you guys came on stage formally to ever say, look, these were the policies. Can we tell you why they're there? You feel like you're talking to a faceless entity. Mm-hmm. Because they never show you that face that wrote the policy. What they're showing you is, here's Don Maverick on stage, smiling and showing you Connect games, family and friendly for everybody, and then here's the cold, stern politician blocking all the shots from Adam Sessler and all the other journalists, and then also here's this policy paper we wrote down for you guys that we won't say out loud. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? They lost touch with their consumer base. As much as we shit on 360 and shit on Connect because we don't like it, they at least knew where the consumer base was with Connect. Mm-hmm. They at least had some of that consumer base with all their other Halo games. Was it completely out of touch with the hardcore? Sure. But they had some base. There was some consumer base there. Right. Now it's like they don't fucking care. Now it's as if the consumer base doesn't matter to them. They built this system for publishers. For sure. The system was built for money and greed. It's as if to say, you're not getting an end of our bargain. This deal was made for us to make money, not for you to get enjoyment. That's the attitude that they, as if first for us, second for you. That's the attitude that they went at it. Yeah, we know it's business. Yeah, we know we need to make money. But there's sometimes where you can't fucking bite the hand that feeds you. You can't cook the golden goose. And Microsoft tried to cook the golden goose. This generation, they got caught with it. And I believe they will lose this generation and they're going to pay dearly because it's one of these things where it's one thing to go against a company. It's another thing to go against your own fucking fans. It's like, it's hard to see a company go so anti-consumer and then think they're going to leave like good. As if someone's going to be positive about what was done. It's like they're banking on that nobody hears about this. Or banking on that not too much people make a big deal out of it. As if they will ignore it. They don't want to say it. They want to just get away with it. That's the attitude that they have. And to not address it like we talked about in episode 5 and episode 6, it seems to us as deceptive. It's not saying it because they don't want you to know what's going on. And that's too much for me for a company like that.
No, it was very, very well said. And with that, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. That basically wraps everything up.
Pretty much. This has been episode 7. Fears were definitely concerned, but basically May 21st, fears were confirmed, but June 10th, gaming prevailed. People prevailed. This has been episode 7. into the foxhole.
Take care, guys.
Get out of here!